Chapter 599. Han Fei and the others were not interested in gossiping at all. Everyone muttered, "Didn't you say that we could ask any question?" Luo Xiaobai immediately changed the topic. "President, what should we pay attention to when we go to the unknown place?" Old Bai said leisurely, "The main thing is to keep a low profile." "Ah." Han Fei asked weakly, "Sir, are you sure it's not a high profile?" Old Bai pondered for a moment. "The main thing is that even if you are high profile, you may not be able to stand out. As I said, there are many talents there. You think you're high profile enough to be in the limelight, but in reality, others are even better. You sound like I'm looking forward to it." Old Bai coughed and said, "But don't worry too much. Our Thug Academy also has people in the unknown place." Everyone. Wen Ren Yu and Xiao Zhan both smiled, giving them a strange feeling. His first reaction was old Jiang and Jiang Qin. These two must be nesting in the unknown place. This time, he had to find them. These were two big shots. He had to hug their thighs. Although the unknown lands were much vaster, they would have to stay there for 4 years, so the chances of them meeting each other were still very high. Xia Xiaochan asked, "Are there any martial uncles?" Lu Rinquang asked, "Will this senior uncle rob us?" Old Bai frowned. "Don't ruin your impression of the teachers and students of the Thug Academy just because of Faceless. When you get there, your senior brother Dashui will come to meet you." "Senior brother Marshall?" "Marshall? What? Does our Thug Academy have a senior brother who is a marshal?" Old Bai paused slightly, and a trace of displeasure flashed in his eyes. "Humph, you'll know when you get there." For some reason, Old Bai seemed to be in a bad mood. Everyone guessed that the senior brother must have had some conflict with the sect again. Otherwise, why hadn't they heard of it ever since they entered the school? Zhang Xuanyu nodded. "Probably at the same level as Uncle Master Faceless. To be able to become a marshal, he must not be weak." However, since Old Bai said that senior brother Dashui would pick them up, thinking about it, he would be able to see it when the time came, so there was no need to ask too much. Wen Ren Yu smiled strangely and said, "You need to be careful on this trip. You must not be rash. The unknown lands were not like the 36 towns. Not everyone was easy to talk to. When you get there, follow the rules." Of course, he couldn't be too cowardly and ruin the prestige of the Thug Academy. "You don't need me to teach you such a small matter, do you?" Xiao Zhan nodded and said sternly, "When we get there, don't think about exploring the secret realm every day." The unknown lands were vast and boundless, and the mystic realms in the sea were like stars in the sky. Even in the mystic realms near the sea, there were many that had yet to be discovered. But it's different from the level 3 fishery. "You'll know when you get there." Luo Xiaobai suddenly asked, "Sir, will it be difficult for us to team up after we get there?" Xiao Zhan shook his head. "It's not that easy to form a team. Since everyone has different needs, you may do your own thing when you get there. If you get rid of certain restraints, you can still choose to form your own team." Old Bai suddenly said, "Han Fei, come with me. The rest of you stay here and continue to ask questions." Han Fei. After a while, Han Fei and Old Bai came to the library. Han Fei asked in confusion, "President, why do we have to talk in private?" Old Bai threw a few sea-swallowing seashells at him. "I've exchanged your mid-quality pearls for high-quality pearls, a total of 15 million. Don't think it's too little. You can't exchange them for profit. And 2 billion is a bit too much. It's already very rare to exchange for this number on a place like the floating island." Han Fei immediately put on a happy face and put away the sea-swallowing seashells. Although 2 billion could only be exchanged for 15 million, the quality was not comparable at all. If he really took 2 billion mid-quality pearls to the unknown lands, he might not have a place to exchange them. Then, Old Bai handed over a jade slip. "This is a book on refining, but it's only a preliminary introduction. You can learn refining in the unknown place. I don't know what refining method you have, but I'm afraid it's not simple. When you get to the unknown lands, find a way to get a refiner certificate from the refining hall. Otherwise, you would be able to casually refine supreme-grade spirit artifacts and seal spirits at will. You will definitely be targeted by people with ulterior motives. Han Fei's eyes widened. There is a refiner certificate? Han Fei never expected that there was a certification for this thing. The corners of Old Bai's mouth curled up. That thing is quite valuable. In the unknown lands, the status of refiners is not low. Especially the refiners who can seal spirits, they are 1 in a million. Han Fei immediately paid attention. Since Old Bai said so clearly, it could be seen that the status of a refiner who could seal spirits must be outstanding. In fact, there were not many refiners in the Blue Sea town or in the Level 3 fishery, and it was extremely rare to seal spirits. On the floating island, it was because most people couldn't afford it. The situation in the Level 3 fishery was really treacherous. With a dragon boat nearby, which refiner dared to easily expose himself? Han Fei couldn't help but wonder if he could give full play to his talents in the unknown lands. Han Fei said weakly, "President, do you have anything else to say?" Old Bai pondered for a moment. "I know that when you go to the unknown lands, you will definitely look for that old bastard Old Jiang. However, don't look for him yet. When you need them, you will naturally know where to look for them." Han Fei was surprised. "Why? If I go to the plantation in the unknown lands, I will definitely find them." Old Bai snorted. "Then what will you do after you find them?" Han Fei scratched his head. "Yes. What will I do after I find them?" Old Bai glanced at Han Fei. "Don't think you're great just because you have a sea token. This thing may be a blessing or a curse. In particular, you are still an advanced dangling fisher. Do you still want to explore the secrets of the sea token with your current level?" Han Fei was speechless. "Then can I explore the secrets of the sea token with my current level?" Old Bai thought for a moment and said, "When will the number of stars on your waist tag become 7? Maybe you will be qualified to explore it." 7. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. In the 36-town exchange competition, a total of 103 star waist tags were issued. These were the top 100 among countless students in the 36 major towns. It could be seen that it would not be easy to get one more star. Old Bai asked for 7 stars. What did a 7-star waist tag mean? Seeing that Han Fei was stunned, Old Bai said, "Go ahead. You can take the hexagon starfish, but leave the ghost-eye giant crocodile. Of course, if any of you can really take that thing as your contractual spiritual beast, you can also take it away." Han Fei thought for a moment. He didn't want it. The demon purification pot wouldn't be able to use it for a while. Besides, his contractual spiritual beasts were all legendary. Why would he want a legendary one? After talking with Old Bai, Han Fei patted his butt and walked to Shaozhan's small mountain. In the past half a year, the hexagon starfish had almost become a hexagon sea pig. As for the ghost-eye giant crocodile, since it came to this place, it had been in a panic all day long. A mysterious creature was bullied every day, which was unbelievable. It was just a legendary creature, so it had better keep a low profile, in case anyone would care about it. But fortunately, Han Fei and the others were leaving, and the 3 big teachers didn't bother to talk to it. Even a small force dared not provoke it. Relatively speaking, the ghost-eye giant crocodile found that it was much more comfortable than the hexagon starfish. Besides, the spiritual energy here was not low, so it promised Old Bai to be a guardian spiritual beast for a few years. However, the ghost-eye giant crocodile liked to lie in the plantation because the spiritual energy there was high. The hexagon starfish was a lazy star. It only felt that the bull conch pit was the most comfortable and let the bull conches massage it every day. At this moment, 2 bull conches were crushing the 2 tentacles of the hexagon starfish. This guy was lazily basking in the sun, a bit too comfortable. Han Fei said with a black face, "Get over here." The hexagon starfish said, "Are you going to talk about a raise again?" "I really don't understand." The arrays of starfish are all inherited. I don't know much. Han Fei grinned. Do you remember the card I asked you about? The hexagon starfish rolled its big eyes. I was too young 300 years ago. I really forgot where the black card came from. Han Fei chuckled. It doesn't matter if you don't know. I'll take you back to the old place. The hexagon starfish rolled its big eyes and suddenly became cautious. Where? I'm not leaving. This is my home. I'm not leaving. Han Fei directly took out its essence blood and said, Oh, did I invite a master back to worship me? Forget it, this essence blood is useless. Just squeeze it. Hey. Wait a minute, let's talk. Han Fei's eyes narrowed. Get out of here. I've let you enjoy it for so long. It's time to work. The hexagon starfish. Han Fei grabbed a tentacle and waved his hand, and a large mass of clean water wrapped the hexagon starfish. A few minutes later, a palm-sized hexagon starfish clung to Han Fei's shoulder. You said you would return the essence blood to me. Han Fei said leisurely, You have been living in my house for more than half a year, and there are big bull conches massaging you every day. Do you think it's free? The labor contract will be renewed for 4 years, and I will return it to you after 4 years. The Hexagon Starfish, the first chapter. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 600. When Han Fei returned to the team, Xia Shaochan couldn't help but be surprised. Big Starfish is going with us. The Hexagon Starfish seemed to be grasping at the last straw. I'm not leaving. This is my home. I'm not leaving. As if he didn't hear it, Han Fei nodded and said, Yes, this guy takes up too many resources in the school. I'll reluctantly bring it along with me. Lu Renquang chuckled. Senior Hexagon Starfish, let's go. The more the merrier. The Hexagon Starfish rolled its big eyes. I'm a starfish. In order to go to the unknown place, everyone prepared for a full 6 months. Not only them, but all the people who went with them didn't dare to slack off in the past 6 months. Even those who were eliminated in the first round of the exchange competition did not dare to slack off. This was because their teacher had said that with their aptitude, if they didn't wish to die, they had to cultivate to the point of death. At this moment, the 5 of them stood at the school gate and Han Fei glanced at the school sign. The words on the sign were carved by him. Zhang Xuanyu said slowly, How many times has it been? It's going to take a long time this time. Xia Shaochan said, I'll be back. Lu Renquang sighed. My good day. It's a pity that it ended just like that. Luo Xiaobai said casually, This is still just a trial. Chu Jinan and Ling Yuan were standing at the school gate, looking at them eagerly. In their hearts, they were the best senior brother and senior sister. Among them, Zhang Xuanyu and Lu Renquang were the best because they were not easily crazy. Of course, Han Fei and the others were also fine. However, Han Fei and the others always abused them in all kinds of ways, which they couldn't bear. Chu Jinan said, Senior brother, senior sister, take good care of yourselves over there. Han Fei frowned and said, What are you talking about? You make it sound like we're parting forever. Ling Yuan said, Senior sister, I will miss you. Zhang Xuanyu said unhappily, Why do you miss senior sister? Don't you miss your senior brother? Especially me, senior brother you. Ling Yuan stuck out her tongue and said, Yeah. Xia Shaochan said, Let's go back. We're leaving. Han Fei said to the 2 of them, By the way, I just went to the mountain and shook the hill again. Your saber chi is even more abundant now, so make good use of it. Chu Jinan, Ling Yuan, Xiao Zhan and Wenren Yu took the 5 of them to the teleportation array, but Old Bai didn't come out. 2 hours later. The few of them leisurely strolled to the teleportation array and found that many people from the 3 academies were already standing there. Xiao Zhan patted their shoulders. This is a hurdle we can't avoid. Everyone in the Thug Academy has to take this step. Work hard. Finally, when Renyu said to the 5 of them, when you get there, remember not to be too hasty. Steady and sure is the best strategy. If you have any questions, feel free to look for your senior brother Dashui. Luo Xiaobai nodded. Got it, master. Let's go. When Renyu waved her hand. Go. Be careful. The other students from the 3 great academies were there as well. However, at this moment, no one liked Han Fei and the others very much. There was no conflict of interest, and even Li Hani's anger had almost dissipated. It was mainly because Li Hani had realized the gap between them. If he could still fight with Han Fei and the others in the past, now he couldn't even fight with them. However, when everyone saw that Han Fei was still an advanced dangling fisher, they couldn't help but be stunned. Hasn't this guy made a breakthrough after half a year? At this moment, Luo Xiaobai walked in the crowd and looked at Han Fei. When can you make a breakthrough? Han Fei smiled and said, don't worry. Let's go there and have a look first. Xia Shaochan pinched Han Fei's flesh. Alas, I can't stab you anymore. Han Fei, the teleportation array leading to the unknown place was set up separately. At this moment, the reason why so many people were waiting here was mainly to say goodbye to their families. The other students who hadn't said goodbye were waiting for those who had said goodbye and were ready to leave together. Xiao Zhan and Wenren didn't come in, probably because they didn't like that kind of disgusting farewell scene. Therefore, the 5 of them walked directly to the teleportation array, ready to pass directly. But they heard someone shout, Han Fei, wait a minute. Han Fei looked back, only to find it was Xiang Zuozua, the violent woman. Han Fei smiled and said, what's the matter? Xiang Zuozua pulled Han Fei aside, glanced at Xia Shaochan, and said to Han Fei via voice transmission, someone asked me to bring you a message. Han Fei curled his lips. Huh? Xiang Zuozua rolled her eyes and said, can you be more serious? He Xiaoyu is a good girl. She just told you to pay attention to your safety and that you must be told. What do you want to say? I'll ask my classmates to bring it back for you. Han Fei thought for a while. Live a good life. Don't yearn for the infinite ocean. Xiang Zuozua, Han Fei waved his hand. Let's go. Xiang Zuozua stomped her foot. Han Fei saw Xia Shaochan and grinned. It's okay. Let's go. Xia Shaochan glanced at Han Fei slyly. I didn't ask. They came to the teleportation array. There were guards standing in the way. Seeing Han Fei and the others, although they knew them, they still said, waist tags. Han Fei and the others took out their 3-star waist tags, and the guards nodded and let them in. Without any hesitation, they stepped into the teleportation array without looking back. Outside. Wenren sighed slightly. Let's go. Xiao Zhan nodded. Okay, let's go back. Wenren turned her head inside again. Do you think that if they continue to grow at this speed, will they repeat the mistakes of those years? Xiao Zhan shook his head slightly. It won't be easy. They haven't reached that point yet. Han Fei felt his eyes light up. When he opened his eyes, the first thing he saw were 2 tables. 6 hanging fishers in battle suits, and behind them was the clear sky and misty clouds. In the sky. Floating island. Han Fei looked back, only to gasp in shock. This portal was a bit too big. Yes, Han Fei saw a super teleportation array hundreds of meters high. The front and back of the huge teleportation formation were empty. It looked like a huge eye in the sky. Visitors, hang your waist tag. In front, 2 hanging fishers were sitting at the table. One of them said lightly, not seeming to be in a hurry. Han Fei looked over and glanced at the waists of these people. Among them, the 2 people who were sitting had 5 stars on their waist tokens. The other 4 people had 4 stars on their waist badges. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. Sure enough, this waist tag is graded. However, this waist tag is too shitty, isn't it? How could 2 random people from the other party have 5-star waist tokens? They are the top 100 powerhouses in the 36 towns, but they only have 3-star waist tags. Han Fei and the others hung their waist tags on their waist tags. At the moment when the 3-star waist tags appeared, the eyes of the hanging fishers lit up. Another person said, "Come here to sign in." Luo Xiaobai took the lead to walk down. There were obsidian steps under her feet, and on both sides of the steps, there were 100-meter-high statues of soul warriors holding war sticks. When they came to the table, a person next to them said lazily, after signing in, "Wait aside and refine the waist tag." Huh? Luo Xiaobai frowned slightly. Can this waist tag be refined? The man said lightly, "Of course. In the future, if something happens to you, the waist tag will shatter together with you, and we will know." Xia Xiaochan said, "So, this is equivalent to the life tablet of the unknown place?" The man nodded. "You can say that. 3-star waist tag, it seems that you are very talented and won't die so easily. But the waist tag is not only a life tablet. We'll talk about it when everyone is here." After signing in, Han Fei and the others went to an open space dozens of meters away to wait. There were already about 20 people standing here. A drop of essence blood fell into the waist tag, and the waist tag suddenly burst out with a green light, and the 3 stars flickered. Han Fei frowned. He actually had a connection with this waist tag. At this time, he heard a hanging fisher say, "After you refine the waist tag, it doesn't matter even if you lose it. The star will automatically appear in the palm of your hand. If you exceed 100 kilometers, the waist tag will shatter. You can buy a new one then." In the teleportation array, people appeared one after another. Those hanging fishers had no time to talk to Han Fei and the others, but explained to the newcomers. Xia Xiaochan suddenly pulled Han Fei and said, "Look, there are steps over there, leading to the sky." Everyone followed Xia Xiaochan's gaze, only to see that in the clouds, there seemed to be layers of steps, leading to the sky and disappearing into the clouds. Who knew where they would go? Woo squeak, suddenly, above the distant sky, an ethereal voice reverberated in all directions. Han Fei's face immediately changed. A whale? Han Fei knew what it was as soon as he heard it. The whale emitted ultrasonic waves, which humans shouldn't be able to hear. But cultivators could feel it. This voice was so ethereal that it was shocking. If it wasn't a whale, what was it? The next moment, the clouds broke, and an extremely huge whale head poked out of the clouds. As the fish's body twisted downwards, everyone finally saw the true face of the big fish. Everyone was dumbfounded at this moment. The hexagon starfish climbed to Han Fei's neck and stared at him with big eyes. What a big creature! Xia Xiaochan swallowed. What a big fish, Lu Rinquang asked. How many meals does it have to eat? Second update. Please vote, end of this chapter. Chapter 601. Han Fei and the others, including those who had just come out of the teleportation portal, were all stunned. The first reaction in everyone's heart was, "Why is the fish in the sky?" Woo, as if it was a song from the 9th heaven, the ethereal voice echoed in the sky and echoed in the distant sky. Only when it drew closer did everyone realize just how big this whale was. Its huge body, which was more than 300 meters long, made people subconsciously realize how small they were. Its body was like a towering mountain, and its mouth was not open, but Han Fei felt that if it was open, it would be like a waterfall in the sky, with waves in it. The white spots on its dorsal fin, each one different. From time to time, a burst of white mist sprayed out from the gills on its back. As for its eyes, in its dark eyes, there was only a glimmer of light occasionally. Just like its voice, its eyes seemed to be full of endless loneliness. The whale's voice roared 3,000 times, and the butterfly's dream echoed 100 times. Han Fei was really shocked. So that when the giant whale had already swam close, he found a piece of information in his eyes. Name: a cloud whale. Introduction. Above the sea of clouds, a lonely whale, riding the wind, drifting freely between the sea and the sky. The cloud whale has the bloodline of the ancient Kuan Peng, but it is extremely friendly. If it is extremely angry, its voice will echo for 3,000 kilometers, but it will not attack. Level of 50 Equality A legendary contains spiritual energy greater than 15,565 points. Edible effect, inedible, collectible, unabsorbable. A hanging fisher laughed. A group of little guys who have never seen the world. This is a cloud whale, which has been wandering in the unknown place for more than 800 years. You can sit on its back later, but you are not allowed to beat it. Otherwise, you will be thrown down from the sky. Han Fei couldn't help asking, why do we have to ride the cloud whale? Can't we let it soar freely between heaven and earth? The hanging fisher was taken aback for a moment and then smiled. What do you know? This is all voluntary. It likes to fly with people on its back. Otherwise, it will be very lonely. It doesn't even have a companion. What do you know? Of course, Han Fei couldn't understand it, but he did know it. He once met Alice, the loneliest whale in the world. It was a unique whale. A normal whale's frequency was between 15 and 25 Hz, but Alice's frequency was only 52 Hz. The world sighed and said that there was a kind of loneliness called 52 Hz. Because of its unique frequency, it did not have any relatives or friends in the vast ocean. No other whale could hear the song it sang, and no other whale could understand its sorrow. Immediately, Han Fei waved at the cloud whale. Hey! Big guy, I have good food here. So, Han Fei grabbed a yellow-blooded sea cucumber and shook it left and right. Seeing that someone was interacting with it, the cloud whale immediately let out a cry. Han Fei threw the yellow-blooded sea cucumber into the sky, and the huge cloud whale naughtily turned over, revealing its white belly, and then opened its mouth, waiting for the yellow-blooded sea cucumber to fall into its mouth. Me too. Give me a yellow-blooded sea cucumber. Han Fei handed one to each of them. This was an inexplicable joy. Creatures like whales usually wouldn't hurt people, especially cloud whales. He would be able to gain the goodwill of others at the first moment. Even Luo Xiaobai couldn't help but throw out a yellow-blooded sea cucumber. The hanging fisher hurriedly shouted, "You 5 bastards, the yellow-blooded sea cucumber contains so much energy. Do you want to kill the cloud whale?" Lu Renquang was stunned. But the cloud whale is so big. It needs a lot of energy, right? The hanging fisher said, although the size of the cloud whale is related to the amount of energy it needs, the gap is not as exaggerated as you think. 5 yellow-blooded sea cucumbers are enough. Don't throw any more. Wu, the cloud whale, was so happy that it flew into the clouds. Then, it fell freely from the clouds. When it was still 100 meters away from Han Fei and the others, the Kong Sai on its back sprayed a mouthful of mist at them. The cool mist attracted many people's cheers. It took a full half an hour for all the people to arrive. At this time, the 300 people all ran to the cliff of this floating island to see the cloud whale. Yes, this was also a floating island, but its size was very small, only tens of kilometers in size at most. The end of the island could be seen at a glance. They had seen a lot of floating islands, but it was the first time in their lives to see the cloud whale. When everyone arrived, several hanging fishers said solemnly, "Don't make any more noise. Get on the back of the cloud whale." At this moment, the cloud whale had jumped out of the clouds again and flew to the edge of the cliff. Han Fei and the others took the lead and jumped onto the back of the cloud whale. This was an absolutely novel feeling, completely different from the feeling of flying by themselves. One after another, all 300 people jumped up. Then a 5-star hanging fisher and 2 4-star hanging fishers also stood on the cloud whale. They stood not far in front of Han Fei and the others, facing the crowd. The hanging fisher shouted, "Little cloud, let's go." Woo, the cloud whale slammed down, and the wind whistled in everyone's ears. It was so exciting. Feeling the hexagon starfish on his shoulder, Han Fei said to the hexagon starfish via voice transmission, "Don't move. Don't be noticed." The hexagon starfish replied, "I'm not moving. I'm afraid of falling down." Han Fei was speechless and ignored it. Han Fei cast his gaze at the cloud-like steps in the distance and asked, "Senior, what are those steps for?" The hanging fisher glanced at the steps and said with a smile, "This is the skyward ladder. If you are strong enough in the future, you can try to climb this ladder and use it to go straight to the 9 heavens and reach the 1,000-star city." Everyone was shocked. "From here, we can reach the 1,000-star city?" For a time, many people had wild thoughts. Among the major towns, only the Wind Thunder town had a teleportation array to the 1,000-star city. Besides, it was said that if you wanted to use that teleportation array, the requirements were extremely strict and not everyone could go there. If you could go up from the skyward ladder, wouldn't it be a great advantage? However, the hanging fisher sneered. "I said you can try to climb it. This skyward ladder is both a passage and an assessment, and not everyone can climb it. Besides, you don't have a chance to climb it now. Let's survive in the unknown place first." During the soaring of the cloud whale, the leading hanging fisher's face became more and more serious, and finally he said in a cold voice, "Don't regard the unknown place as a tourist place. This is a battlefield of life and death. After you go down, someone will be responsible for receiving you. The command post of the unknown place has arranged a way for all of you. If you have any objections, you can negotiate and understand them by yourself." Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Everyone?" "Huh?" The hanging fisher thought for a moment. "Yes. Sort of. You have 3 stars and you have a lot of choices. After you go down, someone will naturally tell you what to do and where to go." After passing through several layers of clouds in a row, when the cloud whale passed through the last cloud, their field of vision suddenly became clear. The boundless ocean finally came into everyone's sight like a timid girl. However, what shocked everyone was not the sea. What caused everyone to suck in a breath of cold air was that there was an incomparably huge island in everyone's field of vision. Yes, in just an instant, everyone understood that the so-called unknown place was actually an island. This island was so big that looking down from the sky, they couldn't see the end at a glance. On the island, there were mountain ranges, ravines, abysses, empyrean waterfalls, and city walls around the sea. The hanging fisher in front of them shouted coldly, "Don't be fooled by the scenery in front of you. This is an island that swallows people. This island is called Scattered Stars. Do you know why it is called Scattered Stars? Look at the medallions on your waists. There are countless people like you who have fallen here, who have withered away." This person's tone became more and more serious, and then he pointed to the coast and said, "Look. That's a man-eating coast." On the Scattered Stars Island, there are dozens of beaches, such as the Skeleton Coast, Hell Beach, Ghost Coast, Red Tide Coast. The hanging fisher pointed to the mountain range and said, "Do you see that mountain range? It stretches for 800 kilometers and is known as the Transverse Mountain Range, which is full of dangers. Do you see the big waterfall shining with pale red? That's called the Empyrean Waterfall, and there are white bones under the waterfall. Do you see the green jungle connecting the Transverse Mountain Range? That's called the Twisted Jungle, one on the island, one in the sea." For a moment, everyone was frightened when they heard this. A bunch of unfamiliar place names came out of the hanging fisher's mouth, and what he finally expressed was, "It was extremely dangerous here." When everyone was still surprised by what the hanging fisher said, suddenly, someone pointed to the distant sky in surprise and said, "Look, what's that in the sky?" "It's birds." "Oh my God, it's a flock of birds." The students from the Blue Sea town had all seen birds in the Wind Thunder town. But at that time, only one appeared, which surprised everyone. There was a flock of birds here, and there were hundreds of them flying in the sky. Han Fei couldn't help murmuring, "Oh my, there are not only floating islands in this world, but also islands and continents." Han Fei couldn't help but look up and say, "Senior, in the infinite ocean, are there many sea islands like the Scattered Stars Island?" Those who were interested could go and listen to the sound of 52 Hertz. End of this chapter. Chapter 602. The hanging fisher paused for a moment and then looked into the distance. I don't know if there are other places like the Scattered Stars Island. I hope that there is only one Scattered Stars Island in this world. The cloud whale was not slow. In the sky, it skipped the small coastline and flew directly into the depths of the island. As for the birds in the sky, when they saw the cloud whale, they had already turned in another direction. The Scattered Stars Island was very large. According to the Hanging Fisher, this island spanned more than 1,800 kilometers. According to the legend, at the beginning, the island was full of dangerous places. He said that in the past hundreds of years, the island had become much safer. And Han Fei and the others came at the right time. Many places had changed from dangerous places to safe areas. After flying for about half an hour, the cloud whale was less than a kilometer from the ground. They had seen many flocks of birds passing through the sky, but they didn't approach the cloud whale. At this time, Han Fei and the others could already see the pedestrians on the ground. Some people were carrying huge sea monsters and walking, and some were controlling fishing boats to fly away at low altitude. The buildings on the ground were much more gorgeous than Han Fei and the others had imagined. Dozens of kilometers ahead of them, there was a port and a big river on the island, which was the target of the cloud whale. To Han Fei's surprise, there were actually a lot of people on the Scattered Stars Island. On the contrary, people came and went. The Hanging Fisher said, "Don't think it looks like there are a lot of people. Think about it. Have you ever seen a few hanging fishers in your town?" "No." "Then where have they all gone?" Someone exclaimed, "Have they all come to the unknown place?" The Hanging Fisher smiled. "Of course. Otherwise, why do you think there are so many people on the Scattered Stars Island? There is no free lunch in this world. After enjoying so many years of peaceful life, do you really think you don't need to pay anything?" Han Fei and the others finally realized that they were right. They had never realized before that in such a large town with a population of millions, there were only a few hanging fishers and hidden fishers in a world where all the citizens cultivated. At that time, they even thought that these people would go to the Thousand-Star City when they reached a certain level. But now it seemed that this was not the case at all. If they all went to the Thousand-Star City, wouldn't the Thousand-Star City explode from the constant supply of the 36 towns? Soon, the cloud whale slowly descended beside the lake. It was not afraid of strangers and floated directly in the lake. After they jumped off the back of the cloud whale, Han Fei took out a big crab and stuffed it into the cloud whale's mouth. "Big guy, thank you for the ride." "What's a free ride?" "Nothing." Woo, the cloud whale opened its mouth slightly, and Han Fei stuffed the crab in. The cloud whale closed its mouth, and with a crunch, the crab was crushed. Seeing this, the three hanging fishers didn't speak, as long as it wasn't a yellow-blooded sea cucumber. It wouldn't be a problem for the cloud whale to eat as much as it wanted. But the problem was this young man here for a vacation? Why is the sea swallowing seashell full of food? When the others all came down, the cloud whale swallowed a mouthful of water, spat it out, and then soared up. Han Fei looked up and sighed with emotion. The great rock rises with the wind and soars up to 90,000 kilometers. TSK, the legendary Kunpeng is just like this, isn't it? Luo Xiaobai said, "That's interesting. It's quite smooth." The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up. How could Li Bai's poem not be smooth? The others didn't understand poetry and just felt that Han Fei's words were strange. When Han Fei and the others looked at the shore, they found that there were already a lot of people around the shore, nearly 1,000 people. Lu Rinquang said, Why are there so many people?" A student from the other 3 academies said, "Ha! I saw a senior brother from our academy. Ha! My senior sister is here." Seeing that many people recognized their alumni, Han Fei couldn't help but say, "Our senior brother is a marshal. He can't be here in person, can he?" Zhang Xuanyu couldn't help asking, "Senior, do you know where the marshal lives?" The hanging fisher sneered and said, "General. Are you talking about the supreme commander of the Scattered Stars Island? There is only one marshal on the Scattered Stars Island, and that is Shueshenqi, the god of war. The supreme commander. Han Fei and the others couldn't help but look at each other. This is a bit too fucking awesome. Lu Renquang said with a smile, so awesome. Our senior brother is the supreme commander. Puff. The three hanging fishers next to him looked at each other. Is he bragging? Is this Shueishenqi's junior brother? How could Shueishenqi have such a weak junior brother? Before they reached the shore, they heard someone shouting, "Where is Xiang Zuozua? Where is Xiang Zuozua? Is Zhongyu here? Li Hani, who is Li Hani? Come quickly. Who is Lin Xingmu? Come here and let me have a look at my new teammates. The pioneer group is recruiting. Those with 2 stars can give up their sideline and come with us. You guys won't miss out on eating and drinking. Does anyone want to join the Dark Hunter Legion? It's better to join the Dark Hunter Legion than to go to the front line. Come on, the Dangling Fishers Union is recruiting. Sign up first. It won't affect you to go to your post. Recruiting alchemy apprentices. Does anyone want to join us? Purely sideline, 100 high-quality pearls per month. Recruiting refining apprentices. Purely sideline, people with a solid foundation are needed. It won't affect your main profession. 100 high-quality pearls per month. Xia Shaochan said to everyone via voice transmission, 100 high-quality pearls per month. We seem to have a lot of money. When Han Fei came, he gave each of them 25 million high-quality pearls and kept 10 million for himself. Even so, when they heard the price of 100 high-quality pearls, they still felt that they were rich. The 3 hanging fishers suddenly stopped and said to everyone, find the person who called your name first, get to know the situation first, and then make your own choice. Then, the 5-star hanging fisher said with a strange look, you. Why don't you wait in front? If you are really the marshal's junior brother, someone should come to pick you up. After saying that, they left and walked towards a circular building not far away. Phew. They're finally gone. Only then did the hexagon starfish relax from Han Fei's shoulder. Han Fei shrugged his shoulders. You are now an ornament. Don't talk and don't move. Let's get to know the situation here first. Then I'm going to sleep. At this moment, someone shouted, Luo Xiaobai, is Luo Xiaobai here? Where is Zhang Xuanyu? Which one is Zhang Xuanyu? Han Fei, please answer if you hear me. Han Fei saw that it was not the same person who called them. Obviously, it was not the marshal that Old Bai mentioned at all. Han Fei said, let's go to the person who called our name first and get to know the situation. Don't promise me what we are going to do. Let's get to know the situation first and wait for that senior brother to find us. With that said, everyone nodded and dispersed. The person who called Han Fei's name was a valiant woman in a battle suit. There was a scar on this woman's eyebrow and she was quarreling with a person next to her. Don't push me. Do you want to take advantage of me? Why don't you take a good look at yourself? Who the hell wants to take advantage of you? Woman, stand aside. Hey! You look down on women, don't you? Fight me next door if you have the guts. I'm not afraid of you. You're quite arrogant. Cough, cough, well, why don't you quarrel later? Let's get down to business first. When the two of them turned around, they saw a dignified and rather handsome young man standing in front of them. When the woman who claimed to be his mother saw the 3 stars on Han Fei's waist, she said in a daze, You are, Han Fei? Han Fei grinned and smiled. I guess you are definitely not sent by the marshal. The woman was taken aback. Marshal? How does the marshal know a nobody like me? You are Han Fei, right? Han Fei grinned and said, if you are just looking for a person named Han Fei, then congratulations, you have found him. However, the woman frowned and shouted, Are you kidding me? This is the captain arranged for us. What is this? An advanced dangling fisher. Han Fei? Han Fei was dumbfounded. No, wait a minute. What captain? What do you mean? The woman looked at Han Fei up and down for a long time and finally said, Boy, tell me first, how did you get the 3 stars? Han Fei glanced at the waist tag on his waist and said timidly, Is it hard to get this thing? The woman's eyes almost spurted fire. Can you please get rid of the dirt? Hurry up and tell me, how did you get the 3 stars as an advanced dangling fisher? Did you get it through the back door? If you got it through the back door, we don't want it. Han Fei asked, You? Who are you referring to? 4th update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 603. Han Fei tried to be patient, but he frowned too. First of all, I got the 3-star title with my own strength. Second, hurry up and tell me what's going on. I don't know anything yet. The woman frowned and said, We are senior scouts of the 37th Squad of the 8th Brigade under the 3rd Regiment of the Skeleton Shore. I've received news from above that a 3-star captain will be coming over today. Han Fei glanced at his badge. So, I'm your captain now. Bullshit, this old lady won't admit it. You are just an advanced dangling fisher. What makes you think you can be the captain of 4 hanging fishers? Han Fei was speechless. No matter how good-tempered he was, Old Bai had told him to keep a low profile, so he couldn't tolerate it at all. She was originally a pretty good girl. If not for the scars on her face, she would be a really good girl. Why did she speak so harshly? Han Fei's face immediately darkened. Girl, watch your mouth. Don't be so old, why should I? What right does yours truly have to be your captain? Why don't you try hitting me? Beside the girl, a group of people were preparing to watch the show. At this moment, hearing what Han Fei said, he couldn't help laughing. Cough cough. That 3-star kid, are you crazy? This woman is a junior hanging fisher after all. Beat you? Beating you is like playing a game. Young man, don't be so arrogant. Keep a low profile in the unknown lands. Han Fei was speechless. I've been keeping a low profile. Normally, I would have already punched him. Can I stand here and be scolded for half a day? The woman squinted at Han Fei and said, Are you sure? According to the files, you are both a soul warrior and a spirit gatherer. You can't block my sword. Han Fei smiled contemptuously. Come on. Whether I can block it or not, won't you know once you try? I'm a spirit gatherer myself. I can heal myself. The woman's brows relaxed slightly. You're quite broad-minded, but I wonder if your strength is as strong as you say. Han Fei stepped back and shrugged. Come on, have a try. In the blink of an eye, a high-grade spiritual long sword appeared in the woman's hand. Without any hesitation, a set of chain sword skills burst out. It was extremely fast and powerful. However, in everyone's eyes, Han Fei just moved his feet slightly. With the smallest movement, he easily avoided all the sword chi. It looked thrilling, but he missed by a hair's breadth every time. While dodging, Han Fei said casually, Is this only 30% of my strength? Why don't you give it a try? The woman's eyes hardened, and her speed suddenly doubled. The sword chi swept across, making light and shadows flicker around Han Fei, and waves splashed. For a moment, everyone's attention was focused on him. Han Fei still didn't fight back, but his body flickered even faster. He made all kinds of strange movements one after another, but none of them hit him. Han Fei still smiled and said, That's what a hanging fisher should be like. However, you haven't used your full strength yet, right? What percentage was this? 60 or 70%? 13 star-shattering swords. Swish. 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 In an instant, the sword light formed a net, and the sword light was dazzling. Many people looked solemn. Although she didn't use her spiritual beast or contractual spiritual beast, her swordsmanship showed that this woman was really not weak. However, Han Fei's figure flew back dozens of meters on the water. He punched out, and the golden light on his fist was dazzling, and his fist power was unstoppable. With a bang, he smashed the sword net with one punch. Han Fei thought to himself, Old Bai said to keep a low profile, so I'd better keep a low profile. But it didn't seem good to show off too much. The woman on the opposite side had already leaped into the air, and the long sword in her hand drew a gorgeous arc and slashed straight down. Whatever, I have to be recognized by others first. This is not too high profile, right? Han Fei's eyes turned slightly cold, and he suddenly clapped his hands, directly clamping the extremely sharp high-quality spiritual weapon with both palms. The billowing spiritual energy swept past Han Fei's face, causing the water to splash. Wow! He caught the sword with his bare hands. This kid has a strong physique. Sure enough, anyone who can get a 3-star rank can't be simple. This squad of scouts has made a big fortune. Seeing that the woman in front of him was full of astonishment, Han Fei couldn't help but grin. Now, am I qualified? The woman blinked her eyes, put away her sword, and simply cupped her fists at Han Fei. I'm Yu Lingyun, from the 37th Squad of the 8th Battalion under the 3rd Column. Nice to meet you, Captain. Cough, cough. Han Fei was speechless. This woman was so straightforward. After confirming Han Fei's strength, she no longer looked down on him. She no longer pretended that her realm was higher, but bowed to him. That made Han Fei a little embarrassed. Han Fei quickly said, Well, Miss Yu, why don't you tell me what's going on first? What scouts? Also, what's our main mission in this unknown place? Where are we going and what are we going to do? At this point, the excitement was over. Yu Lingyun grinned and, under the envious gazes of many people, pulled Han Fei to an empty space nearby. Yu Lingyun said, Here's the thing. The Scattered Stars Island is actually a giant battlefield, and almost everyone on the Scattered Stars Island has a clear job arrangement. For example, we are responsible for the reconnaissance mission on the Skeleton Shore. Once something happens on the Skeleton Shore, we have to inform all parties immediately and be ready to fight and sacrifice ourselves. Han Fei was stunned. So, we're here to fight? Yu Lingyun nodded. You can say that, but not exactly. To be more precise, we're here to rob resources. Rob resources? Yu Lingyun put on a ferocious sneer. Everywhere around the Scattered Stars Island is our battlefront. We need to fight the sea demons for spirit awakening fluid, spiritual stones, materials, and floating stones. Han Fei felt that his brain wasn't working very well. But after hearing about spirit awakening fluid, he couldn't help but be stunned. So, the spirit awakening fluid in the countless villages under the jurisdiction of the Thousand Star City is all supplied by the Scattered Stars Island? Yu Lingyun nodded solemnly. Yes, it's all at the risk of our lives. Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. Every year, countless people in the major villages and towns received spirit awakening. At that time, it was likely that no one would have known that every innate spirit awakening came with a price. Han Fei couldn't help but ask seriously, is it hard to get spirit awakening fluid? Yu Lingyun nodded deeply. Extremely rare. Even on the Scattered Stars Island, the price of spirit awakening fluid is high. A caddy of spirit awakening fluid costs as high as 5,000 high-quality pearls or the same amount of credit points, and there's no market for it. So high. Han Fei couldn't help but gasp. The price was much more expensive than he thought. Han Fei couldn't help but remember the price that Uncle Faceless sold it to him, 300,000 mid-quality pearls per caddy. Even if it was converted into high-quality pearls at the highest exchange rate, it would only be 3,000 per caddy. But in fact, according to Old Bai, 2 billion mid-quality pearls could only be exchanged for 15 million high-quality pearls, which was much lower than the exchange rate. So, when they were in the level 3 fishery, Uncle Faceless sold the spirit awakening fluid to them at almost half of the lowest price on the Scattered Stars Island. Han Fei immediately felt a pang of heartache. If he had known this, he would have used all his wealth to buy spirit awakening fluid. Captain, You don't look well. Cough, cough. No. Nothing. I'm just shocked by the price. Han Fei secretly took a breath. It seemed that the spirit awakening fluid was far more precious than he thought. No, he couldn't come here for nothing. He had to find a way to get more spirit awakening fluid. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, well, why did I become your captain? Yu Lingyun nodded. Of course, it was arranged by the higher-ups. According to the number of people in different teams and the battle damage, corresponding replacements will be made. 3 months ago, our captain died on the skeleton shore. So, the higher-ups arranged a new captain for us. With that, Yu Lingyun looked at Han Fei's waist tag. If you want to be a captain, you must have a 3-star rank. Han Fei also looked at his waist tag and then asked, under normal circumstances, what contribution do I need to make to get a 3-star rank? Credit points. Yu Lingyun took out her waist tag and said, on the Scattered Stars Island, anything can be exchanged for points, and you can also exchange points for many things you need. For example, this high-quality spiritual weapon in my hand needs 500 points to be exchanged. Han Fei was stunned. Then aren't points equal to money? Yu Lingyun nodded and then said, points are almost equal to high-quality pearls, but they are more valuable than high-quality pearls. There are many things that can't be bought with high-quality pearls, but few things can't be bought with points. Han Fei asked, can I buy spirit awakening fluid with points? 5th update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 604. Yu Lingyun was stunned by Han Fei's question. Brother, do you know how hard it is to get points? You're using points to buy spirit awakening fluid? Do you have too much money to burn? Yes. Faced with Han Fei's question, Yu Lingyun could only nod. However, I don't recommend it. Captain, you don't even have a single point right now. Even if you did, it would cost 5,000 points per caddy. It's not worth it. Not worth it? Han Fei did not think so. The effect of spirit awakening fluid was unbelievable. Speed up the growth of spiritual beasts and contractual spiritual beasts. As long as there was enough spirit awakening fluid, the super fighters like the 3 powerful legendary creatures wouldn't be too strong. Suddenly, he looked at Xia Xiaochan and the others and asked, by the way, if I join your team, what about my former teammates? Yu Lingyun was anxious to hear that. Don't worry, don't worry. First of all, your position as captain was arranged by the higher-ups. Secondly, since you used to be a team, you can often meet each other on your days off. If they were close, it would be fine even if they saw each other every day. After all, we're not the only team of scouts. There are others who take turns. Hearing the urgency in Yu Lingyun's words, Han Fei frowned and asked, is the Scattered Stars Island short of manpower? Behind Yu Lingyun, thousands of people were fighting for people. Having no choice, Yu Lingyun could only press her temples with her fingers. Yes. Otherwise, why would they come to snatch him away? Pondering for a moment, Han Fei said, wait a moment. I need to talk to my teammates. Han Fei shouted at Xia Xiaochan and the others, Xia Xiaochan, Lu Renquang. Let's talk here. Come here. Being greeted by Han Fei, Xia Xiaochan and the others came over with the receptionists assigned by their organization. When she saw Xia Xiaochan and the others, Yu Lingyun was stunned. Does everyone in your team have 3 stars? Han Fei smiled and said, not bad. Yu Lingyun was lost for words. You call this a so-so? How could they not know how hard it was to get 3 stars? This was especially true for the people from these towns. If they wanted to get 3 stars, it would be like an army of thousands of men and horses trying to cross a single plank bridge. The 36 towns only send 100 people with 3 stars each time, and your team took 5. You're telling me this is a so-so? After Luo Xiaobai and the others arrived, they saw that Yu Lingyun and the others looked at each other in bewilderment. It seemed to be asking, what's going on? The genius classes have gathered together. Well, I'm sorry. Let's talk in private. Han Fei stepped on the ground, and a soundproof array was formed in an instant. These people were dumbfounded. Just now, they saw Han Fei fighting with Yu Lingyun, and now he had become a spirit gatherer. And an array master at that. A man asked, "Do you know what's going on? Are the 5 of them together?" The other man muttered, "It seems so. These 5 people are from the 5 major professions, and this one is a soul warrior and a spirit gatherer, both of which seem to be very strong. Will they refuse us?" The other woman frowned. "That's impossible, right? How can we just reject the people arranged by the higher-ups?" Yu Lingyun said, "It's not impossible. If the 5 of them form their own team and choose their own direction, it will be a team of 3 stars. I'm afraid they will grow even faster." For a moment, they were sweating profusely. "Don't. If they have 3 stars, they can't go together." In the soundproof array, Luo Xiaobai said, "I was arranged to be in the Tactical Command Center, saying that I will learn the security deployment and strategic command of the Scattered Stars Island. At the very beginning, I may need to learn all the dangerous places on the entire Scattered Stars Island. I also need to learn a lot of documents about the Scattered Stars Island so that I can use them at any time. I can take a day off every 5 days, go to the coastal battlefield for a day to study and investigate, and spend the other 3 days running and learning." Han Fei nodded. Tactical Command Center. It sounds like a classy name. Zhang Xuanyu was speechless. It doesn't seem dangerous at all. I was arranged to be in the island patrol team, which is a bit like Xiaobai. In the early stage, I may need to go around the entire Scattered Stars Island before deciding which area to patrol. Xia Shaochan frowned and said, "I was arranged to be in a place called the Dark Hunter Legion, which is said to be mostly hunters who specialize in assassination. In the early stage, I may need to do a short training and then try to enter the surrounding shallow sea." Han Fei was taken aback. Enter the sea. In such a place like the Scattered Stars Island, entering the sea must represent great danger. Xia Shaochan nodded. "Nothing. They said that I would try to go to the safe shallow sea in the early stage." Lu Renquang said, "I don't know why, but I was arranged to be in the so-called logistics division. They said that I would learn to make arrangements and deal with various affairs." Han Fei was surprised. "Logistics division?" Lu Renquang nodded. "It seems to be in charge of things. However, like Xiaobai, I only have 1 day off every 5 days, and I have to go to the coastal battlefield for a day to study and investigate." Xia Shaochan said, "I have 2 days off, and the other 3 days seem to be in the coastal area." Zhang Xuanyu said, "I have 1 day off, and the other 4 days are spent patrolling. I don't know if it's in the coastal area." Everyone couldn't help but look at Han Fei. Han Fei said, "They said that they are going to be the captain of some advanced reconnaissance team. When do they rest? I haven't asked them yet." Then Han Fei stuck his head out of the soundproof array and looked at Yu Lingyun. "Miss Yu, what about my rest time?" Yu Lingyun said, 3 days on duty and 2 days off. If you are on duty continuously, the rest time can be changed or extended." Han Fei shrank his head. "Did you hear that? I also have 2 days off. That doesn't seem to be the problem. The problem is whether or not we should agree to it. We came as a team, but now we are obviously divided into 5 places." Luo Xiaobai said, "My suggestion is to split up. We are responsible for a lot of things and need to learn. There are some things that can't be taught in school. I learn tactics, Shaochan should learn direct combat, Zhang Xuanyu may be the rescue type, Lu Renquang is the backup manager, and you are the frontline scout. If we go to different places now, then think about it, what will happen when we work together again in the future?" Zhang Xuanyu couldn't help but exclaim, "The combat power of the team will definitely be greatly increased." Luo Xiaobai nodded. "This is one of the reasons. More importantly, it can help us understand the Scattered Stars Island more deeply." Lu Renkuang, you not only need to know the situation of the battle preparation, but I think you also need to inquire about the dangerous places inside and outside the Scattered Stars Island and divide them into degrees of difficulty. In the future, we will definitely go out and prepare in advance. We need to rely on you in this aspect. Lu Renkuang took a breath and said, okay, no problem. Luo Xiaobai continued, Zhang Xuanyu, you need to know the entire offshore of the Scattered Stars Island. Which places are more dangerous? Which places are safer? Which places are suitable for going to sea? You need to have a clear map of the Scattered Stars Island and its surroundings. Zhang Xuanyu grinned. Leave it to me. With that, Luo Xiaobai looked at Han Fei and Xia Shaochan, paused for a while, and said, Shaochan and Han Fei, because you are closest to the frontline battlefield, you don't need to do anything else, but you'd better improve your strength as soon as possible. It's best if you can become a hanging fisher as soon as possible. Xia Shaochan nodded. I can. I've been a peak-level dangling fisher for a long time. Han Fei thought for a while, grabbed the hexagon starfish from his shoulder, and patted it on Xia Shaochan's shoulder. You are closest to the frontline battlefield. Master Hexagon, you take care of it. Starfish are not suitable to be tools. Han Fei scoffed. Shut up. You are a tool. Next time, I'll give you a spiritual stone as a reward. The hexagon starfish rolled its big eyes. Then I want a high-quality spiritual stone. Okay. Xia Shaochan asked, what about you? Han Fei smiled and said, I still need some time, and it's a reconnaissance mission, so it shouldn't be difficult. Now I'm mainly trying to find a way to break through to a peak-level dangling fisher first. Besides, I have to find a way to learn refining. Luo Xiaobai nodded. As for me, I will spend a lot of time learning the history of the Scattered Stars Island and have a general plan first. Han Fei grinned. That works too. Otherwise, the 5 of us will be at a loss when we just arrived. We don't even know what to do and where to go, which is not good either. However, do we have to wait for senior brother to pick us up? Luo Xiaobai nodded. Let's wait for a while. He should arrange for someone to come to find us. After a while, Han Fei removed the soundproof array. Yu Lingyun and the others quickly asked, how is it? How's the discussion going? Luo Xiaobai nodded. No problem, we can go to different places. Please guide us, seniors. Yu Lingyun immediately smiled. Captain, let's go. I'll take you back to the team. Han Fei smiled. No hurry, we still have to wait, Duong. Duong, while Han Fei and the others were talking, they saw a burly man carrying a huge door board rushing over from a distance. The burly man was nearly 2 meters tall and even bigger than a muscular man like Xiao Zhan. The bluish-black door board on his shoulder was more than 3 meters high and 2 meters wide. Han Fei and the others were speechless. Who the hell is this guy? Why is his style so unique? Why does he look so cool when he runs? He looked like an eyesore. Immediately, a man next to him said, "Ha! Why is the door-carrying marshal here?" 6th. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 605. Han Fei and the others were all stunned. Han Fei asked in a hurry, wait a moment. What's the guy's name? The man said with a smile, he's called Door-Carrying Marshal. Because he carries such a huge door wherever he goes, he's kind of a famous person on the Scattered Stars Island. Yu Lingyun said, I've forgotten his real name. Everybody calls him Door-Carrying Marshal. We're all used to it. I think his name is Wang Dashui, right? Han Fei and the others looked at each other in bewilderment. Luo Xiaobai grinned and said, if my guess is correct, we've been misinterpreting him all this time. Zhang Xuanyu turned around. Can I not recognize him? Han Fei's eyelids cramped. You can't. Don't shout. Don't shout. The tall man ran to the lakeside and shouted loudly, Junior brother, junior sister. Senior brother, I'm here. After a long days, he finally remembered something. Well, junior brother Han Fei, junior sister Luo Xiaobai, Xia, on the other side, Lu Renkuang was already waving his hands. Here. Here. Senior brother, here. Han Fei and the others almost wanted to kick Lu Renkuang to death. Can't you see that we've all turned around? Why are you still here? Ha ha ha, the door-carrying marshal ran close and pointed at Lu Renkuang. You must be Lu Renkuang. It said that you're the fattest. Lu Renkuang, the door-carrying marshal patted Lu Renkuang's shoulder. Bam! Lu Renkuang was simply slapped to the ground. The door-carrying marshal said, well. He. Well, I accidentally used too much strength. Han Fei spoke to everyone telepathically, oh, no, this senior brother is probably an idiot. Luo Xiaobai said, don't criticize him. Everybody was looking at the door-carrying marshal. The man was tall and brawny, and he always had a smile on his face. His nose, lips, and eye bags all looked rather heavy. His big face had nothing to do with handsomeness. However, in general, for some reason, he didn't look that ugly. On the contrary, it gave others the feeling that he was very strong and had infinite strength. Luo Xiaobai slightly cupped her hands at the door-carrying marshal. Greetings, senior brother. All 5 of us are here. The door-carrying man seemed nervous to see a girl. The gate on his shoulder slid off, and one of its sharp horns fell between Lu Renkuang's legs. Boom! A pit was smashed on the ground by the door. Lu Renkuang was so scared that his face turned green. He hurriedly moved back, got up, and ran behind Han Fei. The door-holding marshal was grinning from ear to ear. He was fiddling with the corners of his clothes as if he was nervous. That, junior sister Xiaobai. Luo Xiaobai nodded, yes, senior brother. So, beautiful. Han Fei covered his head. It's over. She's really an idiot. The Thug Academy really didn't take the usual path. He didn't even need to ask about this senior brother's past to know that he was a weirdo. Xia Shaochan asked, senior brother, how heavy is your door? The door-holding marshal rubbed his head. Hey! Why don't you try? It's not heavy. It's not heavy at all. Xia Shaochan really tried to pick it up. But in the next moment, she blushed. Xia Shaochan looked at Han Fei. I can't lift it. You do it. The door-holding marshal grinned. Xia Shaochan, Han Fei. Be honest, are you in a relationship? Pooh. Han Fei was lost for words. Do I have to tell you that? Mumbling, Han Fei stepped forward. As soon as his hand touched the door, his expression changed. This material was like gold but not gold, like iron but not iron. It was cold and a little heavy. Immediately, Han Fei confirmed that the door couldn't be an ordinary object. Han Fei clenched his fist and exerted strength on his arm. Half of the door was lifted by Han Fei. What? Hiss. He's lifted it. Many people focused their eyes on him. When he saw Han Fei pick up the door, his eyes almost popped out. He was only an advanced dangling fisher. Yu Lingyun and the others were already shocked enough when they learned that Han Fei and the others were the door-holding marshal's junior brothers and sisters. Now, Han Fei actually picked up the big green door in front of them, which made them gasp subconsciously. Yu Lingyun's first reaction was shock, and then delight. This captain seemed to be very strong. Although he was only an advanced dangling fisher, he was definitely very strong considering the strength that he had shown so far. Even the door-carrying marshal's pupils constricted the moment he saw Han Fei lift the door. Then, the corners of his mouth curled up, and he laughed out loud. As expected of my junior brother. In the next moment, Han Fei felt that his shoulder was heavy. He gathered all his strength and finally lifted the door on his shoulder. Han Fei tried to feel it. What the hell was this? He had secretly gathered all his strength, which was at least 500,000 kilograms, but he could barely hold it. Also, he almost couldn't hold it anymore. Bam! Han Fei hurried to drop the door and looked at the door-holding marshal in shock. "Senior brother, how heavy is your door?" The door-holding marshal grinned. "It's not heavy. It's only 490,000 kilograms if the seal is not opened." Pooh! Everybody was lost for words. Many hanging fishers were speechless. Did he know that a regular peak-level hanging fisher's strength could only reach 1,000,000 kilograms? In the end, a single door of yours weighed 490,000 kilograms. How was he supposed to live? Were they going to fight or not? Also, Han Fei, you're just an advanced dangling fisher, and you're carrying a door that weighs 490,000 kilograms? Are you really a normal human being? Zhang Xuanyu smiled. "Senior brother, what's your strength right now?" "Hee hee. Not high, not high. I'm only a peak-level hanging fisher. I'm still far from it." Then, everybody focused their eyes on the waist tag of this silly senior brother. There were 6 stars, which meant that this silly senior brother was of a higher level than everybody that Han Fei had met so far. The door-holding marshal said, "Well, are you coming with me? I'll introduce you to the Scattered Stars Island." Yu Lingyun and the others all changed their expressions after hearing what the door-holding marshal said. Compared with a 6-star slaughterer, the 2-star ones like them had no right to speak at all. However, none of them moved. Luo Xiaobai said, "Senior brother, we're going to accept the arrangement and go on an adventure on our own." "Where do you usually live, senior brother? What's your position? What do you do? That way, it'll be easier for us to visit you after we get familiar with the Scattered Stars Island." Immediately, the 2-star receptionists were all relieved. They couldn't let a bunch of heavenly talents disappear just like that. Stunned for a moment, the door-holding marshal scratched his head and said, "We live at the edge of the twisted jungle outside of the Empyrean waterfall. Not just me, you have a senior sister." Everybody looked at each other, and Han Fei said, "Senior brother, we'll go to you later. Let's visit the Scattered Stars Island first." The door-holding marshal thought for a moment. "Okay. Keep your telepathic thoughts to yourself. Everybody." Yu Lingyun said, "What the door-holding marshal means is that the waist tag can store a drop of the telepathic thoughts of whoever needs it. In the future, as long as the people who share telepathic thoughts are no more than 100 kilometers away from each other, they can talk directly with the waist tag." Han Fei was stunned. "Is it really that amazing?" Zhang Xuanyu asked, "How do we do it?" Yu Lingyun said, "Telepathic thoughts are the power of the soul. As long as you scan the waist tag with your soul power, you'll leave a mark. Then, you'll be able to talk to each other." Han Fei was immediately shocked. Wasn't this just a phone call or a message? It was so amazing that he almost couldn't wrap his head around it. Immediately, everybody sensed a flash of murderous aura, and the door-holding marshal said, "Okay, I've left a mark for you. You can leave one too." The so-called telepathic thoughts were just a title. In fact, everybody just scanned each other's waist tag with their spiritual power and left a mark on each other's waist tag. Han Fei quickly left a mark and asked, "Senior brother, we've talked for a long time. What's your name?" The door-holding marshal replied, "I'm Marshal. Marshal Wang." Han Fei secretly sighed. Sure enough, it was an undistinctive name. If it weren't for this silly senior brother who carried this door around every day, nobody would have remembered him. Luo Xiaobai said, "Senior brother, okay, shall we talk another day?" Oh. Okay, then remember to come to me if you need anything. My teacher asked me to look after you. So, feel free to come to me if you need anything. I'm usually here except when I go to sea." They had made a decision during the discussion just now. At this moment, it was useless to follow Wang Dashuai. They couldn't really ask Wang Dashuai to lead the 5 of them to a feast, could they? Wang Dashuai seemed to appreciate Han Fei's decision, so he simply watched the door run away. After bidding farewell to Wang Dashui, Han Fei and the others went their separate ways for now. Han Fei, on the other hand, followed Yu Lingyun to the scout squad on the skeleton shore. On the way, Han Fei asked, "Is the name door-holding marshal very famous on the Scattered Stars Island?" 7th update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 606. Yu Lingyun nodded. Of course. The door-carrying marshal is indeed quite a character. Han Fei just wanted to roll his eyes. Carrying a big green door every day, how could he not have a personality? On the way, Yu Lingyun told Han Fei about the situation around the camp. The skeleton shore was located in the westernmost corner of the Scattered Stars Island. It was a beach that protruded into the sea. It was said that when this place was first discovered, there were skeletons everywhere on the beach, hence the name. This skeleton shore was not big. It only occupied the west side of the shore for about 100 miles, and it was connected to the Hengduan mountain range. The advanced recon team's campsite was on the outskirts of the Hengduan mountain range. Han Fei mumbled, "The skeleton shore. Skeleton? Don't tell me there's something horrifying about it." Yu Lingyun nodded. On this island, the skeleton shore is also known as a corner of hell. After all, it was more than 30 kilometers into the sea. Of course, the other coasts aren't as safe as the skeleton coast. In fact, they might even be more dangerous. In fact, Han Fei was not afraid of danger, because danger often meant opportunity. Otherwise, why would so many people come to the unknown place every year? On the way, to Han Fei's surprise, there were many ancient shipwrecks on the coast. Among them, many of the remains had turned into fossils. One could imagine how long the history of this island was. Yu Lingyun said, "The dangers of the skeleton shore mainly come from 4 places." Han Fei was surprised. Huh? Why is there so much danger in this small stretch of beach? Yu Lingyun's eyes slightly shivered, and the scar that penetrated the corner of her eye wrinkled a little, making her look rather aggressive. She said, "There are dangers that come from under the beach, from the sea on 3 sides, from the strange birds in the sky, and from within the Hengduan mountain range. Because there are too many places where danger could erupt, we need to set up special scouts in the skeleton shore and the surrounding areas." Birds are dangerous too. Yu Lingyun grinned. Of course, the giant birds in the transverse mountain all hunt in the sea. This is something that many hanging fishers dare not do. Do you think they are dangerous? Hanging fishers dare not enter the sea. Yu Lingyun nodded. Of course. The ocean far from the coastline is full of dangers. The main reason why hanging fishers were called hanging fishers was that they only dared to attack in the sky. But hidden fishers are different. They have the ability to dive into the deep sea and fight sea demons head-on. Sea monsters? Yu Lingyun put on a cold smile. Yes, inferior manfish, red demons, half-mermaids, and behemoths are all sea demons. Among them, the inferior manfish are the easiest to deal with. Starting from the red demons, they are already extremely dangerous. Hiss. Han Fei secretly took a breath. If that was the case, then everything made sense. It turned out that creatures like the inferior mermen weren't actually that rare. It was just that the unknown lands were isolated from the floating islands, so no one knew about them. Chirp chirp. Suddenly, he heard the cries of birds in the sky, and a flock of hundreds of big birds flew across the sky. Han Fei immediately understood that birds all appeared in flocks, and each of them was strong, so they became one of the dangers. As for why there were no birds on the floating islands, the reason was very simple. It is easy for you to tame 1 or 2 birds. If you domesticated a flock of birds and placed them on levitating island, their offspring would probably revert to their ancestral roots. At this time, if these birds didn't go to the sea to fish but went to the villages to catch people, they would be in big trouble. All the way to the west, when the fishing boat flew, several people glanced at it, and people flew into the sky to investigate from time to time. Yu Lingyun said, unless there are some special circumstances, it is not advisable to fly too fast on the island, or it will easily cause unnecessary misunderstandings. Half an hour later. From an altitude of more than 200 meters, Han Fei saw a beach that protruded into the sea from a distance. In the offshore, there were stacked reefs. Further inside, it was the coast that had just surfaced. Outside the reef, there was a tall watchtower, and someone was on duty on the tower. Yu Lingyun said, "There is such a watchtower every 10 kilometers. Once something happens, it will immediately release red flames to warn people." Han Fei keenly sensed something. In fact, the skeleton shore should protrude more than 30 kilometers into the sea, right? How far will it recede when the tide ebbs? The corners of Yu Lingyun's mouth curled up. After the tide ebbs, it will extend back twice as far, and it will recede slowly. Every day, the ebb time may be slightly different. But when the tide ebbs, it is also a good time to earn points. There will be a lot of creatures on the beach, and some of them can be worth some points. As she spoke, Yu Lingyun controlled the fishing boat and swept to the edge of a cliff about 30 meters high. On the other side of the cliff was a vast forest. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "The Scattered Stars Island is only so big. Hasn't this mountain range been explored yet?" Yu Lingyun slightly shook her head. "Not all of them. Except for a few creatures who don't know how to swim, most of them are very good at it. As long as we human beings can't occupy every corner, there will definitely be a place for them. Therefore, for a long time, we human beings have been in a state of balance with these creatures. Besides, it is said that a great disaster is lurking inside the transverse mountain. Therefore, generally, if there are no special circumstances, not many people will go inside the transverse mountain. Look, we live here at the periphery." As she spoke, Yu Lingyun's fishing boat landed. It was less than 3,000 meters from the edge of the cliff, which was covered by tall trees. At this moment, Han Fei saw rows of wooden buildings, and some people were barbecuing in the open space in the forest. It seemed that they only sprinkled some salt and didn't add any other seasoning. Yu Lingyun said, "They're all bored guys who are on vacation and want to kill time with some seafood. We'll welcome you tonight. Let's eat as much as we want." Han Fei was rather lost for words. Was that something a girl would say? She sounded even more heroic than a man. Han Fei looked around and saw people moving around. He even heard snores coming from some of the houses. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "How many people are stationed around here?" Yu Lingyun said, "The 8th Battalion under the command of the 3rd Column is all stationed here. At first, there were 100 squads, but now there are only 66 squads left." Han Fei was surprised. 34 squads have died. Yu Lingyun explained, "Actually, some of the squads have died. Later, after they were regrouped, there are still 66 squads. However, 12 of them are still short of members. If they are reorganized, there will be fewer squads." Han Fei asked in surprise, "Is there no new blood?" Yu Lingyun looked at Han Fei. "There is. That's you. It's said that the skeleton shore has 8 spots. That is to say, if everything goes well, 8 newcomers will come to report. You're the first one." While Han Fei was learning about the situation with Yu Lingyun, Han Fei suddenly tilted his head, and a white shadow flew past his ear. Han Fei looked back, only to see that it was a clam shell that had been eaten up. The person who threw the shell was on a tree. Han Fei raised his head and looked very calm. Yu Lingyun roared angrily, "Xiao Er-san, you son of a bitch, get down here. I'll break your legs." The guy who was called Xiao Er-san grinned and said, "Yu Lingyun, is this your new captain? Is there no one else in the 36 towns? Or is it that everyone can get a 3-star rank and be a captain?" Alarmed by the commotion, someone not far away came over to watch the commotion and shouted, "Oh, not bad. An advanced dangling fisher is the captain. Don't get beaten too badly. I'll bet a high-quality pearl that this boy won't last more than half an hour before he runs out crying and shouting that he wants to change places, Ha ha ha, the group of people burst into laughter. Han Fei turned his head and looked at these people. What kind of people are they? He was so bored that all he could do was spout flowery words. Han Fei couldn't help but recall his life as a sailor. He used to curse, gamble, fight, drink, and make trouble every day. Those were too common, and it was a way for these people to relieve their stress. However, even if they wanted to relieve their stress, they had to choose the right targets. There was no way Han Fei was going to swallow this insult. To win these people's respect, it was useless to keep a low profile. Fists were the hard way. When Han Fei was about to take action, he heard someone shout, "Yu Lingyun, why don't you take your new captain to fight? The 37th squad and the 31st squad are starting again. They're betting." Yu Lingyun's face changed, and she looked at Han Fei and said, "Let's go." At the edge of the transverse mountain, a large area had been hollowed out. It was the daily training ground. At this moment, there was a hubbub of noise, and a group of people were shouting. "Gu Daliang, come on. You're going to lose if this goes on. Daliang, are you upset that Yu Lingyun is not here?" A short girl roared, "Daliang, come on. Smash him. Smash him to death." Someone laughed. "Wu Xiaoxiao, why don't you do it? Don't just shout." Wu Xiaoxiao's eyes almost spurted fire. "I'll do it. Daliang, come down and let me do it." Bam! In the field, a young brawny man was thrown to the ground. He was entangled by spiritual plants and couldn't move at all. The male manipulator mocked, "Gu Daliang, your 37th squad is really hopeless. Yu Lingyun has been holding the fort ever since your captain perished. Look at you. What's the use of such a big man?" The brawny young man on the ground roared, again. The manipulator said, "You'll still lose even if you do it 10 more times. Besides, do you still have money? Your 37th squad basically ran out of weapons in the last battle, didn't they?" Gu Daliang roared, "If I lose again, I'll give you my shield." Someone nearby laughed. "Dongzi, it's a waste not to take it. It's a high-quality spiritual weapon anyway. You can make a fortune from it." The manipulator who was called Dongzi grinned. "Fine. If you want another match, let's have another one. I don't want your shield, in case other people blame me for robbing it when you perish in the future. If you lose, your 37th squad will take the reconnaissance mission of the 31st squad tomorrow." How does that sound? Next to him, Wu Xiaoxiao said angrily, "Liang Dong, don't be outrageous. You're just taking advantage of Daliang's lack of weapons. Otherwise, how can a manipulator be so arrogant in front of an armorist?" Gu Daliang spat and said, "Xiaoxiao, don't worry. I'll definitely win this time." Right when they were about to begin, a voice came over. "Hey, how about I compete with you?" Everybody looked back, only to see Yu Lingyun running over with an advanced dangling fisher. It was a man's voice that just spoke. So, it was the advanced dangling fisher who shouted? Ha ha ha! In an instant, a large group of people burst into laughter. Some of them almost fell to the ground in laughter. 8. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 607. Their first impression of Han Fei was that he was weak. Of course, Yu Lingyun thought so too. However, Han Fei simply stabbed a saber into the ground and said, "It's an ultra-quality spiritual weapon with a sealed soul. Whoever defeats me can take it." The laughter came to an abrupt end. A group of nearly 100 people, everyone's movements stiffened. The guys who were laughing a moment ago all widened their eyes when they saw the ultra-quality spiritual saber. Han Fei tilted his head slightly, and the long saber floated in midair. Phantoms of mess-swallowing worms appeared on the saber and stabbed into the center of the field. Yu Lingyun was stunned for a moment. She suddenly pulled Han Fei. "Are you crazy? You're gambling with an ultra-quality spiritual weapon with a sealed soul?" Gu Daliang and Wu Xiaoxiao both looked at Han Fei. Seeing that Han Fei was an advanced dangling fisher and had an ultra-quality spiritual weapon with a sealed soul, they thought that a rich guy was here. A shadow flashed before everybody's eyes, and a man appeared. He looked at Han Fei thoughtfully and said, "I'm Leng Hui, the hunter of the 37th squad. Are you the new captain?" Han Fei smiled casually. "If my guess is correct, I am." Leng Hui, however, immediately looked at Yu Lingyun. Yu Lingyun frowned and nodded reluctantly. Seeing that Yu Lingyun nodded, Leng Hui and the others didn't say anything, but they all thought, how strong can an advanced dangling fisher be? Han Fei simply ignored Leng Hui and the others. In such a place, it was impossible for him to blend in before he proved his strength. They might not have despised him if he wasn't a captain. But if he was a captain, he had to show that he was qualified to be a captain. Han Fei stood in the middle of the field and said with a faint smile on his face, "Anyone can come. If you defeat me, this saber will be his." Liang Dong shouted immediately, "I'll do it, boy. You may be from a rich family, but I have to show you what a battlefield is today." Han Fei extended his hand and said, "Oh, really? All right, let me understand." Wu Xiaoxiao pulled Yu Lingyun's hand and asked telepathically, "Can he do it?" Yu Lingyun replied, "We exchanged a few moves when we picked him up today. I'm not worried that he will lose to Liang Dong, but that Guowen will." Han Fei grinned. "Come on." As Han Fei waved at Liang Dong, a man suddenly walked over and said, "Liang Dong, don't be careless. He is the new captain of the 37th team." Liang Dong smiled contemptuously, then his face turned serious. He could look down on Han Fei, but he would never go easy on him. This was what the battlefield had taught him. Spirit extinguishing vine. Bang, 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 in the void around Liang Dong, a large number of green and red vines with sharp saw-teeth appeared out of thin air. In an instant, there were thousands of them. At the same time, vines were intertwining as if they were trying to weave a giant whip like Luo Xiaobai did. The attacks of ordinary manipulators were nothing more than this. Han Fei stood in the center of the vines, not moving at all. When the massive amount of vines was about to wrap him up, a blade light extended out from the vines. Immediately afterward, the vines wrapped around Han Fei shattered. Spiritual energy flashed on Han Fei's body, and with a bang, all the vines exploded. At this point, Han Fei was holding a twig in one hand and looking at Liang Dong with a smile. At this time, the onlookers were no longer in the mood to laugh at Han Fei. Manipulators seemed to be an auxiliary profession, but their combat power was not weak at all. Not everything could shatter the vines. Judging from the strength of the vines just now, it would take a full-strength blow from a peak-level dangling fisher at least to break them. But what did they see just now? How did the vines turn into pieces? Liang Dong's face changed greatly, and he slapped the giant vines out. Han Fei raised his hand, waved the twig, and a blade light swept past. Puchi, the thick vines snapped like they were made of paper. And Han Fei's blade light didn't seem to be damaged much. Not good. Immediately, a junior hanging fisher took out a large shield and put it in front of Liang Dong. Clang! The blade light was shattered, and surging spiritual energy exploded. The armorist's high-quality spiritual shield was cut by Han Fei's blade light, leaving a deep crack. For a moment, the audience fell silent. Yu Lingyun's eyes glowed. She had underestimated Han Fei. She had thought that Han Fei's strength was similar to hers. After all, Han Fei was also a spirit gatherer. She didn't expect that his knife technique would be so terrifying. Wu Xiaoxiao looked at Yu Lingyun. Is the new captain really an advanced dangling fisher? Gu Daliang rubbed his arm and took a breath. Not bad, not bad. It's true that all captains are extraordinary. Leng Hui didn't speak, but his eyes were fixed on Han Fei, as if he were considering how much strength Han Fei used. However, when he saw the twig in Han Fei's hand, his eyelids couldn't help but cramp. Han Fei was too arrogant. Pa! Pa! I told you not to look at your level. Strength depends on the person. In the crowd, a young man walked out. Han Fei sensed the sharp sword intent on him at the first moment. The young man looked at Han Fei with a smile. I'm Guo Wen, captain of the 31st Squad. May I know your name, Your Excellency? Han Fei smiled casually. Han Fei. Guo Wen nodded. Captain Han, please don't blame me. It's a habit for the 8th Battalion to practice with each other. Han Fei smiled. That's fine. However, I stand by what I said. Whoever wins will get that saber. I mean, everyone here, every single one of you. Hiss. Isn't he a bit too arrogant? Although he's a heavenly talent, is this really appropriate? Captain Gua is an intermediate hanging fisher. Interesting. I'm starting to like this guy. Wu Xiaoxiao couldn't help but clap her hands. The new captain is so domineering. I like him. Yu Lingyun snorted. It doesn't matter even if you like him. He already has a girlfriend. Wu Xiaoxiao, Guo Wen paused and slightly frowned. Originally, he wanted to keep the peace, but Han Fei repeated this sentence, which clearly showed that he was trying to establish his authority. However, was it reasonable for an advanced dangling fisher to establish dominance over a bunch of hanging fishers? Guo Wen was slightly unhappy. Just consider it a practice. I don't want your ultra-quality spiritual saber. How about we each launch an attack? Han Fei grinned. That's great. Guo Wen said to the people next to him, let's disperse. Many people retreated in response. The attack of an intermediate hanging fisher was quite powerful. Naturally, Han Fei also sensed the sharp sword intent from Guo Wen. Gu Daliang mumbled, Lingyun, is it really okay for Guo Wen to fight in person? Yu Lingyun was lost for words. There's nothing I can do. Our new captain seems rather domineering. This battle was initiated by him. Leng Hui said casually, he might not necessarily lose. Guo Wen looked at Han Fei. Are you still going to use the branch in your hand? Han Fei smiled casually. I'm used to it. Besides, this is a practice. I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't have any inferior weapons except for ultra-quality spiritual weapons, so I can only use the branch. Pooh! The group of people immediately rolled their eyes. Are you here to show off your wealth? Someone was lost for words. It seems that he has multiple ultra-quality spiritual weapons. Someone guessed, could he be the nephew of a master of refining? It's possible. Guo Wen's face darkened. He looked at the branch in Han Fei's hand. Why don't you go first? Han Fei was briefly stunned. Then he grinned and said, okay. Weapons are blind. Are you ready? Humph. Guo Wen's sword intent was getting stronger and stronger, and the smile on Han Fei's face gradually faded. After all, it was unrealistic for an intermediate dangling fisher to turn over a branch easily. However, it was just a branch anyway. He could always replace it if it was broken. The spiritual energy and energy in Han Fei's body were condensed on the branch in the blink of an eye. He waved the branch, and the upper half of it had been crushed by the attack except for the small part that was still in Han Fei's hand. A huge arc of a curved saber cut through the air, heading straight for Guo Wen. The moment the machete appeared, the latter's face had changed. He roared, "Thousand-star stab!" The soil under Guo Wen's feet was shattered, and the long sword in his hand stabbed out glittering sparks in the air. The horrifying sword light pierced straight at Han Fei's machete as if it were tearing the void apart. Clink! Crack! 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 To everybody's disbelief, the high-quality spiritual weapon in Guo Wen's hand was breaking inch by inch. The collision of the sword chi and the machete raised a raging wind that everybody couldn't help but turn their heads away. Guo Wen suddenly leaned to one side. The moment he dodged to the side, a large tree not far behind him, with a loud bang, broke apart. Everybody was silent. At this moment, nobody dared to underestimate Han Fei anymore. They all looked at Han Fei as if he were a monster. Although Guowen wasn't injured, his long sword was broken, and he dodged in the end. It was enough to prove that he had lost. Han Fei, on the other hand, pulled out the machete from the ground with a smile and said, "I'm new here and need to learn more about the situation. So, I won't bother you any longer. Tonight, I will be holding a barbecue banquet, and I hope that everyone will come." Then, Han Fei turned around and looked at Yu Lingyun with a casual smile. "Do you want to find a place to talk?" Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 608. Han Fei left side by side with Yu Lingyun and the others. He said in a low voice, "Was I too high profile just now?" Yu Lingyun, Wu Xiaoxiao was overjoyed. "That's right. If we can't subdue these people, they will find fault with us every day." Leng Hui, "Mainly because I have nothing better to do." Han Fei was lost for words. "You're so bored that you just stay on the island? Why don't you go treasure hunting?" Gu Daliang sighed helplessly. "How can treasure hunting be so simple? Although the sea is just over there, in fact, if we go down there, we won't be able to get it back in half an hour." Han Fei glanced at Gu Daliang and couldn't help but smile. "You really can't. All you have is a shield. Among all the armorists I've seen, you're the poorest one." Gu Daliang, Wu Xiaoxiao was a petite girl. She might have been born to look like a lowly. Earlier, when she was cheering for Gu Daliang, Wu Xiaoxiao had screamed for a long time, but all she managed to do was utter a bunch of sweet noises that made one speechless. In terms of looks, Wu Xiaoxiao was much worse than Xia Xiaochan, Luo Xiaobai, and He Xiaoyu. He didn't feel anything at all. At this moment, Wu Xiaoxiao simply grabbed Han Fei's shoulder. "New captain, is your family a refiner? We're not surprised that you have a supreme-grade spirit artifact. But there are only a few ultra-grade spiritual weapons with sealed spirits in them in the entire 8th Battalion." Han Fei hurriedly withdrew his arm. Hey, it's inappropriate for men and women to touch each other. I'm going to resign if you keep this up." "Resign?" Everybody understood what he meant, but Yu Lingyun said, "Captain, you've already come and accepted the mission. How can you resign?" While they were whispering, Han Fei returned to their dormitory camp. When he stood in one of the rooms, he was lost for words. 5 people sleeping together. Wu Xiaoxiao, "Yeah. For the sake of team harmony, we'll all sleep together." Han Fei's eyes widened. Is she really that unrestrained? Cough cough. Gloomily, Yu Lingyun said solemnly, "Don't listen to Xiaoxiao's nonsense. There are 5 rooms inside." Han Fei couldn't help but say, "What's the use of a separate room? What can't you sense once you sense it?" Yu Lingyun seemed to have a little understanding of Han Fei's temperament. This person seemed to be a bit mischievous and playful. Yu Lingyun said coldly, "We're all warriors. We won't easily perceive other people. This is respect for comrades." Gu Daliang pushed the door open, and the first thing that greeted him was a little fishy, as well as the salty smell of the sea breeze. Han Fei frowned. "Do we have to live here?" Leng Hui said, "You don't have to." Han Fei looked back at the woods and said, "Okay, you stay here for a while. I'll build a tree house later." Gu Daliang frowned slightly. "Captain, I don't think it's a good influence, right?" Han Fei sneered. "What's wrong with that? I'm used to living in a tree house. I'm not used to sleeping on the ground." When they entered the door, Yu Lingyun suddenly roared, "Gather." Under Yu Lingyun's command, both the cold Leng Hui and the jumpy Wu Xiaoxiao stood in a row. All of them stood straight with intense killing intent bursting out of their bodies. While Han Fei was stunned, Yu Lingyun said, "Soul Warrior Yu Lingyun, Junior Hanging Fisher. His spiritual beasts are fiery fish, and his contractual spiritual beasts are blood-thorn tuna and ghost spiritual fish. He's good at sword techniques, Manipulator Wu Xiaoxiao, Junior Hanging Fisher. His spiritual plant is 3-leaf cold phoenix grass. His contractual spiritual beasts are gold nematode and purple sand eel. He's good at extreme cold combat techniques. Armorist Gu Daliang, Junior Hanging Fisher. His spiritual beast is blue tide turtle. His contractual spiritual beasts are ice crystal shell and arrow heart shell. He's good at defense and spear techniques. Hunter Leng Hui, Junior Hanging Fisher. His spiritual beast is dark thorn fish. His contractual spiritual beasts are mad blood worm and wolf crab. He's good at sudden outbursts. His combat techniques are ghost stab. The four of them looked at Han Fei at the same time, and Han Fei was lost for words. Do they have to be so formal? Han Fei couldn't help but put away the smile on his face. Han Fei, a soul warrior and a spirit gatherer. He's an advanced dangling fisher. His spiritual beast is spirit swallowing fish. His contractual spiritual beasts are mantis shrimp and red ring octopus. Han Fei didn't want Little Gold to be exposed, although some people must know it. Little Fatty had even shown up in the Wind Thunder Town. If someone really wanted to get to the bottom of it, it wouldn't be a secret. The reason why Han Fei didn't mention Little Gold was that he was afraid that Little Gold's flying characteristics would scare them. Spirit swallowing fish. Yu Lingyun and the others looked at each other in bewilderment. Spirit swallowing fish have no combat power. Immediately, Yu Lingyun secretly complimented him. No wonder Han Fei's physique was so strong. It turned out that his spiritual beast had no combat power. He couldn't just rely on his contractual spiritual beasts, could he? Then, the scene of a young man cultivating his physique appeared in Yu Lingyun's mind. In her imagination, Han Fei definitely couldn't be as relaxed as he looked at this moment. Han Fei said, "Why don't you be so serious first? I just want to ask you 2 questions." Yu Lingyun nodded. "Go ahead." Han Fei nodded slightly. "First, why are your weapons so lousy? When I was in the level 3 fishery, every hanging fisher had several ultra-quality spiritual weapons. Why don't you have any?" Yu Lingyun and the others couldn't help but look bitter. Wu Xiaoxiao pursed her lips and said, "We have no choice. The ultra-quality spiritual weapons can't be saved. Once a super intense battle breaks out, the spiritual weapons will be easily broken. So, it's better to use high-quality spiritual weapons. If they are broken, we can replace them." Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Break ultra-quality spiritual weapons? Isn't that something that only peak-level hanging fishers can do?" Yu Lingyun shook her head. "If you keep fighting high-intensity battles, the ultra-quality spiritual weapons will be greatly worn out. Although ultra-quality spiritual weapons sound nice, in fact, the strength of the materials themselves is limited. After a long time, they will be easily broken. Only ultra-quality spiritual weapons with sealed spirits are not easily damaged because they have been enchanted." Gu Daliang added, "More importantly, we can't afford them either." Yu Lingyun and the others looked at Gu Daliang. "Why are you so straightforward?" Han Fei finally understood. "I can't afford it," Han Fei understood. It wasn't that Han Fei hadn't used ultra-quality spiritual weapons before. Except for the fact that peak-level hanging fishers could easily break ultra-quality spiritual weapons when they attacked with all their strength. He didn't think that ordinary junior hanging fishers could break ultra-quality spiritual weapons. Knowing this, Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Are you saving points or high-quality pearls now?" Yu Lingyun bit the bullet and said, "Both. We have more than 38,000 points in total." Han Fei asked, "So many points? What level do you belong to?" Yu Lingyun nodded. "If you get 50,000 points individually, you can be promoted to a 3-star rank." Han Fei was speechless. "So, the points of the 4 of you combined are not enough to be promoted to a captain?" Yu Lingyun and the others couldn't help but blush. "That's exactly it." Han Fei couldn't help but glance at the 3-star rank on his waist. It turned out that being in the top 100 of the 36 towns meant that he had earned 50,000 points in the unknown place. Han Fei nodded. "Second question. Tell me about the skeleton shore and the creatures in the sea." At night, it seemed that a few newcomers had joined these teams. However, none of them were from the Blue Sea town, and Han Fei didn't know any of them. At this moment, Han Fei was building a cabin on a big tree 5 kilometers away from Yu Lingyun's camp. Gu Daliang was helping him. Gu Daliang grinned, revealing his yellow teeth. "Captain, is your family very rich?" Han Fei said with a smile, "No, I earned all my money by myself." Gu Daliang was confused. "Then why do you have an ultra-quality spiritual weapon with a sealed soul?" Han Fei blinked his eyes and said, "My teacher gave it to me." Gu Daliang was stunned. It's indeed because of his background. We don't have a teacher to give us anything. Wu Xiaoxiao was controlling the vines to fasten Han Fei's cabin to the tree. Hearing that Han Fei had a teacher, Wu Xiaoxiao couldn't help but say, "My teacher can't afford that. Even my teacher doesn't have an ultra-quality spiritual weapon." Han Fei asked, "Which town are you from?" Wu Xiaoxiao replied, "The cloud-soaring town." "You must have met people from the cloud-soaring town in the match, right?" "The cloud-soaring town?" Han Fei couldn't help but ask in surprise, "Didn't you say that few people came from the cloud-soaring town?" Wu Xiaoxiao said helplessly, "Not many people come from the cloud-soaring town. However, the Scattered Stars Island is too big. We only meet people from the same town during our vacation. More than half of them have perished in the past few years." After chatting for a while, Han Fei closed the last window and said, "Okay, let's go treat the guests." Wu Xiaoxiao said in a low voice, "Are we really going to treat them? I don't think Sister Lingyun and the others can catch much food. It won't be enough." Han Fei smiled. "That's fine. I brought food." "You brought food?" It wasn't until a moment later that Wu Xiaoxiao realized what Han Fei meant. Yu Lingyun and Leng Hui went fishing for a long time, but they only caught some creatures within a kilometer of the seaside, including clams and crabs. However, Han Fei took out a whole pile of food from his sea-swallowing seashell. Everyone was extremely speechless. "You ran all the way from town to the unknown place with just a bunch of food?" Yu Lingyun asked, "More than 30 yellow-blooded sea cucumbers." "Captain, aren't you being too wasteful? There aren't many yellow-blooded sea cucumbers in the unknown place, so they're more expensive than in the level 3 fishery. They can be sold for 100 high-quality pearls each. You've taken out the equivalent of 5,000 high-quality pearls in one go." Han Fei put on a smile and said, "You can do whatever you want when you're rich." Yu Lingyun was rather speechless about the new captain. She didn't know why, but she always felt that this new captain was full of disdain for this place. The author said, "Happy New Year, everyone. Everything is good in the new year, and your dreams come true." End of this chapter. Chapter 609. Han Fei treated them to a meal as soon as he arrived. In this unknown place, he was indeed quite unconventional. However, rich people could do whatever they wanted. As the saying went, you have to take advantage of others. This truth was universal in every world. When Han Fei showed his fancy cooking skills, everyone was stunned. Immediately, it attracted the attention of all the people present. Except for those who were on duty, no one was spared. At this time, Han Fei was holding a strawberry in his hand, sitting on a tree trunk. Yu Lingyun jumped up and landed next to him. "A meal can't be exchanged for much kindness." Han Fei said lightly, "I know. It's just that I'm a maverick. It's enough to leave a good impression. When are we going to the skeleton shore?" Yu Lingyun thought for a moment. "Anytime. The senior scouts of the 8th Battalion are only responsible for daily reconnaissance. Normally, many people would go to the coastal waters to catch some ordinary creatures to sell. Although the sea is dangerous, it's better on the shore. So, there are still a lot of people on the coast." Han Fei asked, "Tell me about the points." Yu Lingyun took out a booklet and said, "I'm here to deliver this to you. You'll know after you read it." After a while, Han Fei looked a little solemn. The role of the star rank and the difficulty of promotion seemed to be greater than he thought. Good deployment. From no stars to the highest 12 stars, it represented 13 different levels. And now, the only person with 12 stars on the Scattered Stars Island was Shueishenqi, the highest commander of the Scattered Stars Island. Those without stars would receive 200 high-quality pearls and 200 high-quality points every month. They were all not hanging fishers and seemed to only be able to do chores and ordinary coastal defense work. 1 star would receive 500 high-quality pearls and 500 high-quality points every month. Basically, they were all junior hanging fishers. 2 stars would receive 1,000 high-quality pearls and 1,000 high-quality points every month. It was no different from 1 star. Usually, as long as one's strength slowly improved, one could reach it. 1 and 2 stars were the main members of the coastline defense of the Scattered Stars Island. 3 stars would receive 2,000 high-quality pearls and 2,000 high-quality points every month. Most of them were in places such as the Reconnaissance Group, the Garrison Group, the Pioneer Group, the Island Patrol Team, and the Fishers Union. Usually, they would serve as some small cadres. Relatively speaking, they were much stronger. Generally, they had to be intermediate dangling fishers. Once he had 4 stars, he would receive 5,000 high-quality pearls and 5,000 points every month, which was a significant increase. Except for special reasons, it basically meant that his strength had reached the level of an advanced hanging fisher, or other identities equivalent to this realm, such as a refiner or an alchemist. When one had 4 stars, it was said that they would receive the honor of the Guardian of the Sea, which would give them a discount when buying things. 5 stars, 10,000 high-quality pearls and 10,000 high-quality credit points every month. At this level, people could choose their own path. For example, if they hunted more than 100 sea demons, they would be given the title of Killer of 100. On the Scattered Stars Island, they would be regarded as blood guards, who walked out of the sea of blood. The 100 sea demons here were not ordinary inferior fishmen, but 100 highly intelligent and high-level sea demons. Although the level 40 inferior fishmen were also sirens, killing 1,000 of them might not necessarily give them the title of 100 Slayer. Under normal circumstances, a 6-star rank would not only double the benefits, but also be awarded the title of Slaughterer. It was a solo mission. The Scattered Stars Island wouldn't care what you did, only what you gained. This meant that he would be free after he had 6 stars. If he had 7 stars and killed more than 1,000 sea demons, he would be qualified to be promoted to a centurion. That was a real fame earned through killing. Han Fei couldn't help but gasp. When he saw the requirements for the promotion, he felt that his head was about to explode. From 3 stars to 4 stars, the basic requirement was 300,000 points and winning 5 defensive battles. From 4 stars to 5 stars, the basic requirement was 1 million points and the title of Killer of 100. From 5 stars to 6 stars, the basic requirement was 5 million points, the title of Killer of 100, and killing more than 10 level 49 sea demons. From 6 stars to 7 stars, the basic requirement was 10 million points, the title of Killer of 1,000, and killing more than 10 half-mermaid heavenly talents. Han Fei felt that his blood was freezing. Was he too arrogant? That was too fucking far away. Yu Lingyun just told them that the points they earned were a few points at a time. How long would it take for it to reach 1 million? The next day. Han Fei couldn't wait to get up and go to the skeleton shore immediately. However, as soon as he went out, he saw Yu Lingyun and the others walking over. Han Fei was confused. Aren't you still in the vacation period? I can go by myself. Gu Daliang nodded. It's fine if you're in the vacation period. Let's go to the coast to hunt some regular creatures. Wu Xiaoxiao added, money is a treasure trove. The Scattered Stars Island doesn't have many things, but it's easy to pick up random creatures on the coastline. After those sea creatures brutalized each other, some of them were pushed ashore by the waves. When the tide ebbs, we'll take advantage of them. Seeing that they were all ready, Han Fei didn't say anything else. As it happened, he wanted to see how strong his new teammates were too. For now, those people might be strong, but their combat ability would be greatly reduced because of their poor equipment. He was now stuck in the realm of an advanced dangling fisher and needed to stay there for a while. In that case, it was his duty as a captain to understand the strength of his teammates and help them improve their strength. Very soon, they came to the edge of the cliff. As long as they jumped off the cliff, they would reach the skeleton shore. The skeleton shore was made of sand, gravel, and mudflats. Because there were so many clams in the sea, the beach was full of crushed shells as far as the eye could see. There was no land or beach on the Sky Island, so there was no such view. In Han Fei's vision, there were also some bizarre-shaped rocks in the seawater far away, as if they were stuck into the sea. Yu Lingyun said, "Those are the remains of big ships from a long time ago, just like the fossils of the big ships we saw on the way yesterday. However, they are larger, and they're still in the sea. Sometimes, we board them and pick some sea creatures." Leng Hui said casually, "At this moment, the tide hasn't ebbed yet. After the tide ebbs, we can take a look at the ships that are closer. However, there aren't many good things on those ships. After all, most of the creatures attached to them are shellfish." Han Fei looked at the beach and saw about 5 teams searching on the beach. He couldn't help but ask, "Are they the people who scavenge the sea?" Gu Daliang nodded. "Yes, let's go. We might be able to pick up some good things if the tide ebbs." Han Fei followed Yu Lingyun and the others to the part of the skeleton shore that protruded into the sea. After running for about 10 kilometers, he heard Yu Lingyun say, "Be careful of the ground. Further ahead is the place where the tide has just ebbed. In the mud and sand, there are likely to be sand-skin shrimps, flathead big-eyed crabs, filamentous sea spiders, and king worms. If you're not careful, you might even be killed." Han Fei nodded. In fact, his senses had already sunk into the slowly receding seawater. In the water, Han Fei saw strange red and yellow poisonous spiders with claws all over their bodies, yellow shrimp-like shells that looked like fans, and an arched black worm whose body was made up of 13 segments of black carapace. Under the beach, Han Fei sensed a lot of such creatures too. They seemed to be the coastal creatures that Yu Lingyun mentioned just now. Before Han Fei was about to start, he saw that Yu Lingyun and the others had already taken action. The 4 of them took out their fishing rods almost at the same time. Yu Lingyun's fishing hook darted out like a streak of light and caught a big crab half a meter long under the beach. After the flathead big-eyed crab was caught, Han Fei finally understood why it was named that way. Its shell was almost flat, and its 2 big eyes, like 2 big glass beads, couldn't stand up at all and could only be stuck on the shell. Swoosh! A streak of sword aura pierced through the middle of the flathead large-eyed crab's eyes and killed it in one attack. Yu Lingyun stored the flathead big-eyed crab into her sea-swallowing seashell unconcernedly and glanced at Han Fei. "Don't underestimate those regular creatures. Every year, a lot of newcomers are killed by them. Even junior hanging fishers sometimes fall victim to them." On the other side, Wu Xiaoxiao was much more efficient. The 3-leaf frigid wind grass moved under the sand. Wherever Wu Xiaoxiao passed, several large ice blocks would be raised, and all the creatures inside were frozen. Leng Hui had already entered stealth mode. Every time he appeared, a spot of sand would be dug up. Gu Daliang used the shield as a skateboard. He stood on it and moved forward all the way. Holding 2 big hooks in his hands, he plunged them into the sand now and then. Then, one strange creature after another was hooked out by him. Seeing that they were so familiar with this, Han Fei knew that they had done this many times. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "You're fishing so crazily. Are these things valuable?" Wu Xiaoxiao replied, "Not at all. 1 point for 1. Anyway, there are too many of these things, and many people on the island like them." Han Fei was lost for words. "A level 38 creature is only worth 1 point. Leng Hui replied, "They're regular quality." Han Fei was speechless. Even if they were of regular quality, they were still level 38 creatures. That was too cheap. No, He had to catch dozens of each kind and store them in Forge the Universe. Han Fei's perception was relatively far away. After he quickly hooked dozens of creatures and threw them into Forge the Universe, he suddenly found that a black weird thing was wriggling at the ebb tide. Immediately, Han Fei waved his fishing pole and caught the thing. In the next moment, the black thing was hooked back by Han Fei. Wu Xiaoxiao exclaimed, "Hey! A king worm, 5 points for 1. In Han Fei's eyes. Name a king worm. Introduction. This is a scavenging creature that lives on carrion. It has a hard shell and enormous strength. When it's in danger, it will roll into a ball and attack the enemy. Its gallbladder can be used as medicine. Insect gallbladder. The king worm shrunk itself into a ball in midair and flew straight at Han Fei. Han Fei frowned. Why would he want it if it couldn't be eaten? It was a good chance to test its strength. Bam! Han Fei punched out and smashed the king insect into pieces in the next moment. Wu Xiaoxiao shouted, "Captain, you've lost 5 points. Get out of the way. Let me see if the gallbladder is damaged." Wu Xiaoxiao searched for a while and said regretfully, "Ah. It's damaged." Han Fei, Gu Daliang slid to Han Fei. "Captain, should we go easy on it?" Han Fei was lost for words. "If you earn points one by one, how long will it take you to earn them?" Wu Xiaoxiao said matter-of-factly, "Many a little makes a mickle." Gu Daliang nodded. "If we're lucky, we can get a high-quality spiritual weapon in a day." Han Fei rolled his eyes. "How long will it take to get an ultra-quality spiritual weapon?" Gu Daliang paused for a moment. "At this rate, we should be able to get one in 10 days. However, if we want an ultra-quality spiritual weapon with a sealed soul, we'll have to fish for at least 20 days. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. "Is an ultra-quality spiritual weapon so much more expensive than a high-quality one?" Yu Lingyun walked close and said, "That's why everybody prefers high-quality spiritual weapons to ultra-quality ones. Because points are not just for exchanging for items. They have many other uses." Han Fei suddenly paused. "How much is a basalt conch?" "A basalt conch?" Everybody was briefly stunned, but Gu Daliang said, "The shell of a basalt conch is hard and can be made into shields. It's only 100 points. Han Fei waved his hand and threw out his hook. Wu Xiaoxiao exclaimed, "Huh! You're so good at 1,000-mile fishing." Yu Lingyun said, "It's far away." However, in the next moment, a big conch flew close. Gu Daliang's eyes widened. "It's a basalt conch. Leave it to me." Han Fei frowned. He had caught it randomly. There were actually a lot of creatures in the tide. Why didn't they go down? Except for the filamentous sea spiders that had feet everywhere, there didn't seem to be any particular danger. It seemed that the skeleton shore didn't live up to its name. The author said, "I've already got 2,300 votes. I really didn't expect that I would be defeated on the first day. Okay. Let's add chapters to the daily updates. For example, if we don't meet the conditions for adding chapters before 5 o'clock, we'll add chapters the next day. If we meet the conditions before 5 o'clock, we'll add chapters on the same day. Today, I don't have any experience, so I'll put up a 4,000-word chapter first. Let's not count as 2 chapters, just 1 chapter. What matters is that you're happy. Thank you for your monthly votes. Also, if you keep asking for monthly votes, I'll vomit blood again." End of this chapter. Chapter 610. Han Fei was not interested in level 39 basalt conch at all. So what if it was 100 points? If you want to be promoted to a captain, you need 50,000 points, and you need to catch 500 basalt conches. As for himself, he didn't seem to be promoted yet. After all, he hadn't experienced any battle intent, and this was only his first day on the job. Even if he caught 500 basalt conches, he still had to deduct his other expenses. For example, they could buy equipment, spiritual fruits, and other miscellaneous items. In this way, he had to kill at least 1,000 basalt conches to have a chance to be promoted to team leader. But in fact, how can there be 1,000 basalt conches for you to fight? If 1,000 basalt conches really appeared, it would definitely be a fish tide, and not a small fish tide. Han Fei asked Gu Daliang to put away the basalt conch. They were about to disperse and continue to scavenge, but Han Fei stopped them. Han Fei asked, "Hey, is the skeleton shore really that dangerous?" Yu Lingyun replied, "Of course not. The reason why this sea area is called the Skeleton Coast is not because the problem lies on the coast, but in the sea after the tide has completely ebbed, especially in the seawater near the coast." Han Fei asked, "What is it?" Wu Xiaoxiao said, "The skeleton shore is full of scavengers. In the depths, there are red coral hermit crabs, blue armored shrimp, red ape shrimp, tide-calling crabs, and big sword water fleas. Once you enter the sea, these creatures will swarm you in thousands." Leng Hui said, "Sometimes, even if they don't enter the water, they will swarm to the skeleton shore to lay eggs. At that time, it wouldn't be as simple as tens of thousands of them. It's a black mass, both on the shore and underwater." Hearing this, Han Fei understood. Therefore, it was still a matter of quantity. It didn't mean that there were many terrifying creatures on the skeleton shore. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Let me ask you, what's the most valuable creature with the most points?" Yu Lingyun replied, "Not exactly. The armor of the blue-patterned armored shrimp, the pincers of the tide-calling crab, and the great sword of the water flea are all worth more than 100 points. However, there was a creature in the Sea of Skeletons called the Three Changes Golden Ginseng. The energy contained in its body was probably 10 times that of the yellow-blooded sea cucumber. One would cost between 8,000 and 10,000 points. However, this item is extremely rare and rarely appears." Han Fei couldn't help but take a deep breath. Its energy was dozens of times higher than that of the yellow-blooded sea cucumber. "Good stuff." Han Fei grinned and said, "Yu Lingyun, you said yesterday that it takes 300,000 credits to exchange for a 4-star rank, right?" Yu Lingyun nodded. "Yes. Although it's easier to obtain more points in the deeper parts of the sea, it's also more dangerous. We can't go there. After all, we are only hanging fishers." Han Fei had understood. Although Yu Lingyun and the others were junior hanging fishers, their 1,000-mile fishing technique was not good enough. For example, when he discovered the basalt conch, they did not discover it. Their perception range was also much smaller than his. To put it bluntly, he was weak. A junior hanging fisher wasn't that strong. It seemed that becoming an intermediate hanging fisher was a major breakthrough and his strength had improved a lot. At this moment, Han Fei was not going to scavenge the sea with them. It was not that he wanted to be high profile, but these people's behavior was too low-key. There was a vast ocean in front of them, but these people were picking things up by the shore. Was this appropriate? Han Fei said, "Can you, beep?" Beep. Han Fei was about to ask if they could go to the sea, when he suddenly heard a loud howl. Yu Lingyun suddenly changed her expression. "Not good, the 31st Reconnaissance Squad found something in the sea and is sending a warning to the watchtower. Retreat and prepare for defense." Han Fei was confused. "Wait a minute, did the 31st Squad run into the sea?" Leng Hui said, "Our reconnaissance mission is in the sea. We're just here to scavenge the sea. There's no need to go to the sea." Han Fei immediately made up his mind. As long as he could go to the sea, his perception was great. As long as he sensed something good, he could jump down and grab it. What was there to be afraid of? He thought that the so-called advanced reconnaissance mission was to scavenge the sea like this. As for the howl, Han Fei didn't take it seriously at all. The 8th Battalion had been guarding here for a long time. From 100 squads to 66, it could be seen that this kind of thing must happen frequently. It might be a little dangerous, but it shouldn't be too serious. As the horn of the watchtower sounded, red smoke rose in the sky. Han Fei knew that it was calling for help. Han Fei had already followed Yu Lingyun to the shore. At this moment, they were all ready. Yu Lingyun said, Captain, we are advanced scouts in peacetime, but we are warriors in times of war. We also need to fight on the front line. Let's get used to each other first. In the sky above the sea, a fishing boat was coming back quickly. The man on it was Guo Wen, who lost the fight yesterday. At this moment, he was roaring, a tide of tide calling crabs. A tide of tide calling crabs is coming. Everybody, prepare for battle. Beep. Beep. The seawater was surging, and the waves were obviously bigger. A big bulge was rising from the depths of the seawater. As the red smoke rose, fishing boats had already arrived from all directions. At first, there were only one or two. Then, there were dozens, and then hundreds. In the end, almost 500 fishing boats arrived. Among them, each fishing boat was a squad. This time alone, more than 500 squads had come. Together with the 8th Battalion that was stationed on the skeleton shore, there were 600 squads and more than 3,000 people in total. Han Fei couldn't help but be amazed at the efficiency. From the red smoke to the arrival of the reinforcements, it took no more than 100 seconds. It was not hard to imagine how efficient the battle was. Staring at the sea, Han Fei asked, "Are we going to stay here?" Leng Hui nodded. "We'll charge with the Guardians later." Han Fei asked, "What's the Guardians?" Yu Lingyun explained, "The Guardians are warriors who fight on the front line all year round. For example, those who failed in the competition of the 36 towns and have 1 star will all be sent to the Guardians without exception. Only when they get 2 stars will they be qualified to be scouts." Han Fei frowned. "So, there are actually a lot of advanced and peak-level dangling fishers in the Guardians?" Yu Lingyun looked at Han Fei thoughtfully. "Basically, there are few advanced dangling fishers. Half of them are peak-level dangling fishers, and most of them are junior hanging fishers. However, most of them have just advanced." Han Fei seemed to understand the meaning of the stars. Every level actually had its corresponding tempering. For example, those with 1 star and those without stars were frontline warriors who had to fight. This was also a challenge that could make people grow up quickly. Then, after being promoted, he became a scout. Although they didn't have to be prepared to fight on the front line at any time, scouting was definitely not an easy task. It could be regarded as a challenge with higher requirements. Once you become a squad leader, it would mean that you were already outstanding and qualified to lead a team of 5. Han Fei's starting point was relatively high. He was a captain the moment he arrived. Although he was a newly appointed captain, it was also a responsibility to protect his teammates when the battle started. It was also something that he should do. People fell from the sky like dumplings. Everyone was already holding weapons, but they hadn't fused with their spiritual beasts yet. A few of them looked strong at first glance. They also had 3 stars or even 4 stars. At this moment, they were calling everyone to line up in a line like bead chains across the beach. Behind Han Fei, all the scout squads had arrived. Han Fei saw a bald young man standing at the forefront of everyone. The 4 stars on his waist indicated his identity. Yu Lingyun said, "This is the captain of our 8th Battalion. His name is Zhong Han, a powerful armorist. He just became a peak-level hanging fisher 3 months ago." At this moment, Zhong Han roared, "All captains, step out." All of a sudden, all the 66 captains stepped out, including Han Fei. This was the enemy's home field, and Han Fei had to follow the rules. Zhong Han glanced at Han Fei and then glanced at the others. "All captains, take your squads and support the soldiers of the Guardian Regiment. Whenever the pressure is greatest, go to the side where it is. Remember, attack flexibly and retreat as you fight." "Yes." Everybody roared at the same time. Zhong Han didn't look at Han Fei anymore and simply ordered the soldiers to disperse. 10 kilometers away. A large number of black shadows were crawling to the shore like a tide, numbering in the tens of thousands. Han Fei couldn't help but worry. Could the 3,000 people resist so many crabs? However, when the tide-calling crabs were still 5 kilometers away from the coastline, the guardians in the front had all fused with their spiritual beasts and possessed their contractual spiritual beasts. Everybody roared and charged forward. By logic, Han Fei should have admired those people's bravery and fearlessness. But for some reason, it was exactly because of their bravery that Han Fei realized that there was something on the Scattered Stars Island. If the entire coastline of the Scattered Stars Island was like the skeleton shore, were the creatures really charging to the shore to lay eggs? Of course not. It couldn't have been something as insignificant as laying eggs. He had to explain it to Luo Xiaobai when he found her later. What exactly caused the war between the sea and the land? While he was thinking, Han Fei had already charged out with Yu Lingyun and the others. Yu Lingyun said, "Captain, this is your first time in a sea battle. You need to be careful. This is not a competition. Even though the tide-calling crabs are not strong, you don't know where the next attack will come from once you charge in." Han Fei nodded. "Got it, but let's not take action yet. Leng Hui, you're fast and approach the front line. If you can't catch them, come back and inform me. Don't go to battle without permission." "Okay." Han Fei was used to Luo Xiaobai's orders, and he actually felt quite good when he became someone else's captain. The error-free chapter of Fishing God will continue to be updated on Green Bean. There are no advertisements on this website. Please collect and recommend Green Bean. If you like Fishing God, please collect. Fishing God Green Bean updates the fastest. Chapter 611. Tide-calling crabs were very easy to recognize because their features were too obvious. Other crabs all had 2 pincers, but even though the tide-calling crab had 2 pincers, it only had one pincer that was even larger than its body. As for the other one, it was almost negligible. However, the pincer was the most dangerous part of the tide-calling crab. The pincers possessed terrifying strength and were capable of snapping middle-grade spirit weapons. If a hanging fisher was caught by the pincers of a tide-calling crab, he would usually be cut into 2 pieces. In addition to its strong attack power, the pincers were extremely hard. The essence of the tide-calling crab was all in the giant pincer. In Han Fei's eyes, information emerged. Name: a tide-calling crab. Introduction: a scavenging creature. The tide-calling crab could only produce 1 pincer in its entire life, which was as hard as iron and as powerful as a mountain. There were sharp serrations on the pincers, which could easily crush ordinary hanging fishers. Level: 41, Quality: Normal. It contains spiritual energy greater than 1,285 points. Effect: Long-term consumption can strengthen the body. Collectible: Tide-calling pincer. Absorbable: The battle had already begun. There were tide-calling crabs everywhere with their pincers raised. Crab shells, crab roe, and other sticky things were scattered on the ground. Anyone who saw it would frown. Han Fei felt that he had underestimated these junior hanging fishers. Whether it was their attacks or their methods, they seemed to be more brilliant than he had imagined. Even those peak-level dangling fishers, when cooperating with each other, could make the entire battlefield overrun with vines and glow. You're not weak. Han Fei had seen the battlefield in the Heavenly Desolation City, which was truly horrifying. Lives were piled into the sea as if they were worthless. However, the level of the battle was different. On the battlefield of Heavenly Desolation City, hundreds of kinds of creatures attacked each other, making it impossible to guard against them. The tide-calling crab, on the other hand, could only attack with its pincers. As long as someone dodged its claws, it would basically be done for. Suddenly, Han Fei heard someone call, "The 12th Squad Scout will be filling in." As it turned out, 2 peak-level dangling fishers had been pinched to death, causing the team to retreat. Hence, the situation of filling in the gap appeared. Han Fei was not in a hurry to get on the field. At present, the casualty rate was very low. There were only 4 teams of scouts left to fill in. However, the carcasses of the tide-calling crabs were piled up on the ground. When the bodies of the tide-calling crabs were piled up more than 3 meters high, the front line was moved back dozens of meters. It seemed to be a tactic. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Leng Hui still hadn't returned. At this point, 8 teams of scouts had filled in, and the rest were waiting patiently. Yu Lingyun said, "It's almost time." Han Fei wondered, "What do you mean?" Yu Lingyun said, "The Guardians had a high combat ability in the first hour. However, after this period of time, the loss of combat capabilities would be too great, and it would be extremely easy to be damaged in battle. So, it's almost time for us to fill in." Han Fei sensed for a moment, only to discover that while there weren't as many tide-calling crabs as before, they were still everywhere on the skeleton shore. He couldn't help but wonder, what will happen after the Guardian Regiment's combat power drops? Wu Xiaoxiao took a deep breath and said, "Some of them will retreat. The scouts will take their places and buy them some time to rest and refill their spiritual energy." Gu Daliang said, "The higher the stars, the greater the pressure. A small team of high-level scouts can be used as 2 or 3 small teams of guards." It did seem reasonable to do so. After all, for a hanging fisher, their recovery speed wouldn't be slow as long as a spirit gatherer provided them with spiritual energy and healing techniques. After another half an hour, the Guardians retreated another 50 meters, and a second wall of crabs appeared. At this moment, a lot of scouts around Han Fei roared, "The scouts of the 15th squad will fill in. The scouts of the 17th squad will fill in. The scouts of the 23rd squad will fill in." Leng Hui suddenly showed up. "Captain!" Han Fei instantly roared, "The scouts of the 37th squad will fill in." With that, Han Fei led Leng Hui and the others to rush into a gap. While charging, Han Fei shouted, "Wu Xiaoxiao, freeze the ground. Don't charge head-on. Follow me or Gu Daliang to create an environment and cooperate with Leng Hui." Han Fei looked at Gu Daliang. "What weapon will you use?" Gu Daliang was briefly stunned. "A broadsword." Han Fei threw an ultra-quality spiritual long saber to Gu Daliang. "I don't have a broadsword. You can borrow this one." In the end, Han Fei said to Yu Lingyun, "Don't charge too far away from Gu Daliang and stay close to him." Yu Lingyun and the rest of them were rather surprised that Han Fei put himself in the position of captain in an instant. Han Fei simply made the simplest tactical arrangements. He hadn't seen Yu Lingyun and the others cooperate with each other, so he couldn't command them accurately. He needed to observe first. After the 5 of them charged forward, 2 teams of guardians immediately retreated. When some of them retreated, they were slightly shocked to see that Han Fei, an advanced dangling fisher, was charging forward. Thud! As the vanguard, Gu Daliang pushed his shield forward, and there was nothing but green in front of him. Immediately, a layer of ice crystals covered his body, making him look like a large diamond man. Gu Daliang, who had an ultra-quality spiritual saber, held his shield in one hand and his saber in the other. After a burst of spiritual energy, 3 tide-calling crabs were cut into halves by him. The ground had already been frozen. Many tide-calling crabs accidentally fell to the ground. Every time Leng Hui appeared, he would stab his dagger between the eyes of a tide-calling crab. Yu Lingyun's battle was rather fierce. Her spiritual beast was a fiery fish, so the long sword in her hand was ablaze, and the sword auras that she released were all red. When the sword auras were released, Yu Lingyun's body was pierced with golden light that was equally sharp. In the blink of an eye, she had pierced through 2 tide-calling crabs. It wasn't a problem for a squad of scouts to cover the gaps of a couple of guardian squads. Han Fei, on the other hand, was quite simple. He was holding a branch in his hand, and every time he waved it, he would not stop until at least 3 tide-calling crabs were cut in half. That was when the tide-calling crabs blocked it with their pincers. Compared to Han Fei's ease, the others' battles were quite violent. The entire coast was lit up with a myriad of colors. Spiritual energy was rippling, and saber auras and sword shadows were raging. Some people held giant axes and left golden marks dozens of meters long. Someone shot spears and didn't stop until they pierced through dozens of tide-calling crabs. All in all, when the squad of scouts came to the front, they were able to hold the front line. Of course, Han Fei paid more attention to his own side. Based on his observation, Leng Hui was fast, but his reaction was not fast enough. Wu Xiaoxiao was not only good at freezing, but she could also attach herself to the purple sand eel, which made the three-leaf frigid wind grass poisonous. However, after she froze dozens of tide-calling crabs, a problem arose. Firstly, she wasn't strong enough to kill them, and secondly, Wu Xiaoxiao's supply of spiritual energy couldn't keep up. Han Fei immediately pointed his finger, and a pillar of spiritual energy crawled into Wu Xiaoxiao's body. The girl was instantly refreshed, and she covered the ground within dozens of meters with frost. As for Gu Daliang, he had no weapons in his armor box, and he fought like a soul warrior. His body was not bad, but he lacked battle techniques. Among them, Yu Lingyun did the best. The woman's body was covered in flames, and she killed almost 20 tide-calling crabs with one slash. Not only was the pressure on her own squad reduced, but so was the pressure on the neighboring squads. It was a pity that Yu Lingyun didn't launch a second attack after the first one. Her supply of spiritual energy couldn't keep up, and the previous attack seemed to have consumed her energy too. Seeing that a tide-calling crab was about to catch Yu Lingyun with its pincers, Han Fei's first reaction was not to save her. It was impossible that Yu Lingyun didn't notice such an obvious attack. As he expected, Yu Lingyun's body slightly shook, and she escaped from the pincers as if by magic. She left a few blurred shadows in the middle. Huh? Teleportation? No, it's her contractual spiritual beast, the ghost spiritual fish. It seems to have the ability to teleport in a very small range. Just like that, everyone fought for about the time it took for a stick of incense to burn before another batch of guards was replaced. The first batch of people who went down came up again. However, those people were obviously not fully recovered yet. The pressure on the scout squads had increased a lot. They were under a lot of pressure, but there weren't many casualties. Up to now, none of the 5 or 6 squads around Han Fei had been killed or wounded. All of a sudden, a big sword suddenly emerged from the sand under the feet of a member of the neighboring squad. A hanging fissure didn't react in time and was pierced through by the shadow of the big sword. Not good, it's a big sword water flea. Everybody, pay attention to the ground. Daily update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 6:12. Han Fei had been fully focused on the battlefield. He had sensed the ground, but he didn't notice anything below his feet earlier. Then, he focused his attention on Yu Lingyun and the others. At this moment, Han Fei sensed again, only to discover that a large number of big sword water fleas had jumped out of the ground. It further suggested that it was an organized attack, not as simple as crabs coming ashore to lay eggs. However, the number of big sword water fleas below the beach was much less than that of the tide-calling crabs. Now that someone noticed them, everybody's senses were fully unleashed. However, they had to be on guard, and the pressure was immediately increased. The reaction of the guards could not be described as slow. Just as the shadow of the greatsword appeared, purple smoke was already coming out of the observation tower on the other side, and the whistling sound was heard again. In the sky, several peak-level dangling fishers and Zhong Han from the 8th Battalion took action too. If it were just the tide-calling crabs, they wouldn't have attacked them at all. But it seemed that 3,000 people were not enough. Han Fei's expression changed. The 9-tailed mantis shrimp came out. Han Fei kicked it. Go down there and kill any creature you see. At the same time, Han Fei roared, Yu Lingyun, come back. Wu Xiaoxiao, ignore the battle on the ground and focus on the underground. Gu Daliang, focus on defense. Leng Hui, work with Yu Lingyun. Yu Lingyun frowned. Then we won't have enough men to fight head-on. Han Fei smiled casually. I'll do it. Han Fei waved the branch in his hand, and crescent-shaped knife auras slashed out. 8 knife auras were slashed out, and almost 100 tide-calling crabs within 30 meters were killed. However, the branch in Han Fei's hand couldn't withstand the outburst of spiritual energy and exploded. Yu Lingyun and the others, as well as the squads around Han Fei, were all dumbfounded. What the hell? Was it so strong? It wiped out so many tide-calling crabs in the blink of an eye. Someone swallowed. Even if the tide-calling crabs were weak, they were level 41 creatures after all. Although they were just regular creatures, they had surpassed level 40 after all. Instead of retreating, Han Fei charged forward. 10 blue sea wandering dragon daggers appeared next to him and followed him into the tide of crabs. Leng Hui asked, "Are you crazy?" Yu Lingyun said, "Come back. It's not that serious." However, in the next second, they saw the dozens of blue sea wandering dragon daggers spinning around Han Fei, sweeping the battlefield like a meat grinder. Han Fei rushed forward for a kilometer, then turned around and came back. In less than a minute, a large number of tide-calling crabs had been killed. Although the shadows of the giant swords kept emerging from the sand. However, no matter how Han Fei moved his feet and turned his body, none of the big swords could hit him. The peak level 4-star hanging fishers were all stunned. Is he an advanced dangling fisher? Zhong Han, the captain of the 8 brigades, frowned. All 10 ultra-quality spiritual weapons had souls sealed in them. Back then, when he asked for someone, the higher-ups only said that they would arrange for a relatively strong person to come over. When Zhong Han learned that Han Fei was only an advanced dangling fisher, although he didn't underestimate him, he just felt that Han Fei was a heavenly talent and should be able to be the captain. But now, it seemed that he was a little too strong. Yu Lingyun and the others all widened their eyes. They were still fighting and retreating, and Han Fei had gone back and forth for a kilometer. Wu Xiaoxiao exclaimed, "How strong is the captain exactly?" Gu Daliang nodded. "He's a strong captain. I like him." Yu Lingyun's eyes flickered. "It's not a good thing that he's too strong. How long do you think he can be a captain if he's too strong?" Everyone couldn't help but look gloomy. That did make sense. According to Han Fei's strength, it probably wouldn't be difficult for him to get 300,000 points. Han Fei, however, didn't realize that. Of course, he could train the soldiers, but it was obviously beyond the scope of training soldiers. Although he could still fight, the casualties would probably increase sharply. Would he lose dozens or even 100 people just to train the soldiers? Besides, he didn't show any particularly shocking toughness. He only used 10 blue sea wandering dragon daggers, and the rest were nothing more than movement techniques and speed. Even the other 4-star hanging fishers could do that. Han Fei was about to go back to reduce the pressure on the way. He felt that he should be able to hold on for a while. But before he returned to the team, he heard Zhong Han say, "Han Fei, can you cut the battlefield horizontally? Go back and forth horizontally." Han Fei was stunned, wondering if it would be too eye-catching. Zhong Han said again, "Don't worry. You're only a genius if you can do that, but not a real heavenly talent." Hearing that, Han Fei immediately replied, "Yes." Then, Han Fei began to charge north from the south with his 10 blue sea wandering dragon daggers. It was a long distance of almost 50 kilometers, and it would take a lot of time for him to make a round trip. As a result, the entire Guardian Regiment and the 8th Battalion saw a circle of light flash past dozens of meters in front of them with a whoosh. All the tide-calling crabs in the path of the saber aura were pierced to death by a chaotic streak of light. They couldn't block it even with their pincers. No matter how hard the pincers of the tide-calling crabs were, they couldn't be as hard as ultra-quality spiritual knives with sealed souls. Someone shouted, "Look, am I seeing things? He seems to be an advanced dangling fisher. This guy is so strong. Does he think he's mowing grass? Look, they're all ultra-quality spiritual weapons. Is he an unparalleled heavenly talent? This guy must be from the 1,000-star city. Is he from the Heavenly Sword sect? Are you blind? The Heavenly Sword sect uses swords. This guy uses knives. However, this guy is a body refiner. He's probably from the Mountain Sea Pavilion. No, it's also possible that he's from the Grand Void Academy. The guardians of the 8th Battalion were all dumbfounded. Guo Wen, the captain of the 31st Squad, in particular, opened his mouth wide. Damn it! Why did the higher-ups assign such a strong captain to the 37th Squad? We can't compete with them in the future. While Han Fei was cutting across the battlefield, the peak-level hanging fishers all unleashed their ultimate skills. Captain Zhong Han of the 8th Battalion, for example, held a spear that was brimming with killing intent. As he tossed the spear out, it was as if a fire dragon tore through the void, creating a path of flames. The spear blasted out a shockwave that was 30 meters wide and over 5,000 meters long, killing all the tide-beckoning crabs within the area. One of the guardians swept the tide of tide-calling crabs with 2 spinning light balls in his hands as if he were harvesting wheat. Another person summoned a large number of vines. He waved his vines and blew up hundreds of tide-calling crabs. While Han Fei was cutting across the battlefield, 5 peak-level hanging fishers took action and cleared a large area. When Han Fei rushed back, they had already launched the 5th attack. In the sky, the 2nd Guardian Legion had arrived. At this moment, they had landed and charged at Han Fei in place of the previous one. At this moment, the counterattack began. The 2 Guardian Legions and the 8th Battalion, consisting of almost 6,000 people, pressed forward for dozens of kilometers. At this moment, Han Fei had returned to the team. Yu Lingyun and the others looked at Han Fei as if he were a monster with weird expressions on their faces. Han Fei asked, "Why are you looking at me? You have ultra-quality spiritual weapons. You can do it too." Leng Hui replied, "No. My body, speed, and spiritual power can't keep up with yours." Wu Xiaoxiao nodded. "Yes, you're exaggerating." Gu Daliang added, "Even when my armor box is full of weapons, I wouldn't dare to fight like this." Han Fei grinned and said, "I'm doing this for you. I want to earn some points and materials so that you can build weapons." As Han Fei spoke, he held 2 knives in his hands. He had already retrieved the Blue Sea Wandering Dragon daggers. After all, the reinforcements had arrived. If Han Fei wanted to show off, he could only show off that his spiritual power was very durable. Suddenly, Han Fei's expression changed. He looked at Yu Lingyun and asked, "What's the species of the red crab that's more than 20 meters long with steel thorns?" Yu Lingyun was confused, and Leng Hui said, "Wolf crab." "But the wolf crab isn't that big. It should be a wolf king crab." Bam! Suddenly, Zhong Han flew to the sky. He stepped on the void, grabbed a spear in his hand, and threw it down. At the same time, Zhong Han roared, "Wolf crab king! Everybody, help me!" Yu Lingyun and the others all changed their expressions and looked at Han Fei. "Is it really a wolf king? But it must be 3,000 meters away, right?" Han Fei looked at it. The nearest hanging fisher was more than 10 kilometers away. It seemed that he was the closest to the Wolf King. Also, in his perception, the Wolf King blocked Zhong Han's spear with its pincers. In the blink of an eye, Han Fei soared up and tripled his speed. One of his fists was already dark red, and surging energy was spurting out. Even a cloud of fire was ignited in the void. Bam! A fist mark that was more than 5 meters in size appeared a kilometer away. It crossed the void at an incredible speed, crushing all the tide-calling crabs on the way. Rumble, a big crab was blown away. It rolled dozens of meters away in the crowd of crabs, with a big hole on its shell. At this moment, Zhong Han had just blocked the overwhelming steel thorns that the wolf crab unleashed. Another spear burst out in his hand and nailed the Wolf King to the ground. After the Wolf King died, the tide-calling crabs all retreated. The big sword water fleas under the sand also retreated. Zhong Han landed and tilted his head to look at Han Fei, his eyelids shivering. He was thinking, Han Fei's punch is as powerful as his spear. You're telling me that he's an advanced dangling fisher? Are you kidding me? Is he a captain who was transferred from another place? Second update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 613. The battle was over the moment the wolf crab king died. The tide-calling crabs and the big sword water fleas retreated like a tide. However, everybody was looking at Han Fei. Han Fei? Pooh! Han Fei suddenly vomited a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. His face was pale, and his spiritual energy was agitated. Ah! No, the secret technique has hurt me too much. Come on, Gu Daliang, support me. I can't move anymore. Seeing this, many people heaved a sigh of relief. That's more like it. The secret technique must have been too powerful. If Han Fei could unleash such a terrifying blow just now without being injured, how could he do that? That would simply be a little too abnormal. But even so, the terrifying power he unleashed just now suggested that Han Fei's most powerful attack had reached the limits of an advanced hanging fisher, right? Whether or not Han Fei had a secret technique, it was already horrifying that he could unleash the power of the punch just now. This was just a fist technique. The scene of Han Fei cutting across the battlefield with 10 ultra-quality spiritual knives just now shocked many people. Zhong Han strode forward and landed in front of Han Fei. He frowned and asked, "What's the side effect of this secret technique?" Han Fei pretended that it was difficult for him to say. After this punch, I'll have no combat power at all. However, with the nourishment of spiritual fruits, I'll recover 60% of my combat power by this time tomorrow. So fast? Zhong Han couldn't help but guess that it had to be an advanced secret technique. Otherwise, he couldn't have recovered so fast. Thinking of Han Fei's weapons just now, Zhong Han was even more certain that Han Fei was probably the richest and strongest student from the 36 towns this time. Zhong Han frowned. Go back and take a good rest. Your aura is almost the same as that of a peak-level dangling fisher. Don't fight too much for the time being. Let's increase your strength to that of a peak-level dangling fisher first. Han Fei nodded. Okay, no problem. Gu Daliang was about to carry Han Fei on his shoulder, and Han Fei quickly said, "Slow down. It hurts. Hold me and let me walk slowly." Gu Daliang grinned. No need. Let's go back on a boat. Han Fei also stuffed an energy spiritual fruit into his mouth, and then his face looked slightly better. He cried out, "Ah, ah," as though he had been badly wounded. The 4-star hanging fishers of the guards landed one after another and looked at Han Fei strangely. Someone said, "Have you trained your physique to the limit?" Someone said with certainty, "Definitely. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to withstand such violent energy seeping out of their bodies." One of the guard captains nodded solemnly. "I finally know why you are only an advanced dangling fisher. You are completely walking the path of body refinement. You want to break through the realm with your physique and become a hanging fisher." The few of them were having a lively discussion. They were still analyzing what would happen after their physique broke through to the next realm. In the end, everyone came to a consensus. Once Han Fei made a breakthrough with his physique, he would immediately have the combat power comparable to that of an ordinary peak-level intermediate dangling fisher. If he fused his spiritual beast and contractual spiritual beast and used the secret technique just now, the consumption would be reduced by more than half. After they thought they had analyzed Han Fei's path of training, they weren't so surprised anymore. It was only natural that Han Fei was strong since he had trained his physique to such an extent. While the other scouts were still shocked, Gu Daliang had already controlled the boat to take Han Fei back. When Han Fei was on the boat, he asked immediately, "How many points? How many points can we get this time?" Wu Xiaoxiao shrieked, "Captain, you're disabled now. Why do you still care about points?" Han Fei said with mixed feelings, "I did it for you. Look at you. You're so poor that you don't even have weapons, and you're scavenging in the sea. I can't bear to see you like this." Gu Daliang blushed. Are you serious?" Han Fei said solemnly, "Not serious. Your armor box is empty. What else do you want?" Yu Lingyun frowned and looked at Han Fei. "Well, weren't you in a lot of pain just now?" "Oh. Ouch. It hurts, everyone. Wu Xiaoxiao raised her fingers and calculated. In such a large-scale battle, the points should be evenly distributed. However, Captain, you cut across the battlefield and helped Lord Zhong Han. You should be able to get 10,000 points. Han Fei was dumbfounded. Wait, only 10,000 points? Yu Lingyun nodded. It's not low. If you killed the Wolf Crab King on your own, your points wouldn't be low. You might even get 20,000 points. Generally speaking, it was extremely rare to get 10,000 points in a single battle. You have to be at least a 4-star powerhouse to get this score. Han Fei said, I forgot to ask. How many points does a tide-calling crab get? Yu Lingyun said, 30 points. Han Fei was lost for words. Did I kill 1,000 of them? Wu Xiaoxiao said, Hey. Captain, you can't just count it like that. Your mission is to fill in the spots. If you take all the points, there will be almost 6,000 people left. Won't they have no points? Han Fei thought for a moment and realized that it did make sense. He couldn't steal too many points in his first battle. He had to keep a low profile. However, it seemed that he was already a little high profile. Did he have to keep a low profile for a while? With this in mind, Han Fei decided to be an excellent captain in the next few months. He was weaker than a captain but stronger than a regular captain, so it wouldn't be too high profile. Thinking about that, Han Fei grinned. Well, I picked up dozens of tide-calling crab pincers when I killed it just now. All its essence is gathered here. It must taste good. Let's go back for dinner. Pooh! Wu Xiaoxiao and the others looked at Han Fei, dumbfounded. You still remember to pick up crab pincers when you were fighting? Are you a devil? Under Han Fei's treehouse, the 5 of them sat on the ground. Every time Han Fei emptied a crab pincer, Gu Daliang would happily take it away. Han Fei was lost for words. Daliang, why do you need so many crab pincers? Gu Daliang chuckled. The tide-calling crab's pincers are not as good as high-quality spiritual weapons, but they're not far from it. They're even harder than mid-quality spiritual weapons. Wu Xiaoxiao poked Han Fei with her finger and said, Captain, not everybody can take out 10 ultra-quality spiritual weapons casually like you do. Leng Hui said casually, and they have sealed souls. Pondering for a moment, Yu Lingyun said, Captain, your wounds haven't healed yet. Should we transfer to another squad tomorrow? Han Fei quickly shook his head. No, that's unnecessary. I'll be 80% recovered by this time tomorrow. Huh? Wu Xiaoxiao looked at Han Fei. Captain, didn't you say that you would only be 60% recovered by this time tomorrow? Han Fei was briefly stunned. Oh. I was wrong. I said 60% recovered. However, 60% is enough. Don't tell me it will be so thrilling every time. Gu Daliang asked, really? Han Fei grinned. Of course. Why are you panicking? I'm not panicking at all. When will our points be distributed? Can you guys go change your equipment? Gu Daliang, you should at least get a few shields and swords in your armor box, right? Also, Wu Xiaoxiao, what technique do you practice? Your spiritual energy is useless. Leng Hui is also a bit lousy at movement techniques. You're making things difficult for me. Wu Xiaoxiao pouted. Captain, are you despising us? Han Fei denied it. I'm not. I'm just reminding you. Wu Xiaoxiao scoffed. You're just despising us. Han Fei scoffed. Hey! Don't look so pitiful. You're older than me. Wu Xiaoxiao scoffed. Brat, I look petite. Han Fei scoffed. But you're still older than me. Han Fei and Wu Xiaoxiao began to bicker. However, in the eyes of the other 3, it was rather harmonious. Even Leng Hui, who wasn't as cold as he was, couldn't help but put on a smile. Eventually, Yu Lingyun interjected, Han Fei, you're the captain now. Was what you said a suggestion? If necessary, it's not like we can't use the points we have. Han Fei said solemnly, yes. I'm telling the truth. You're indeed at a great disadvantage, especially Xiao Xiao and Daliang. What about before? Didn't you notice it? Gu Daliang nodded. Before, I had a lot of weapons. But last time, in the battle where the former captain died, I lost all my weapons. Wu Xiaoxiao nodded. I know. But I don't have the money to replace them. Our previous points were all used up when we advanced. Originally, we had accumulated a lot last time. But in the battle, we lost almost all of them. Han Fei understood. Was it 3 months ago? Leng Hui nodded. We encountered dozens of exotic creatures. The former captain sacrificed himself to save us. Han Fei was stunned. He couldn't help but admire the former captain. If it were him, he would have probably left those people behind if he wasn't strong enough. Pondering for a moment, Han Fei said, how about this? You go buy equipment and techniques after dinner. If my share of points comes earlier, you guys can use it first. Everybody raised their head and looked at Han Fei. That was almost 10,000 points. Han Fei grinned. Points are not so important to me right now. I feel that I may make a breakthrough in the next month. Only when you become stronger will it be more convenient for you to investigate. If something happens, I'll have to use the secret method again, which will damage my foundation. Near evening, Han Fei's points were delivered. To be precise, it was 9,200 points. The others each had 1,000 points. And the way the points were distributed was quite strange. The balance was directly displayed on the back of the waist tag. Han Fei was taken aback. It turned out that this waist tag could not only be used as a life tablet but also as a bank card. As for bank transfer, it was even more convenient. As long as he activated the waist tag with his spiritual sense, he could swipe it on the other party's waist tag, and with a thought, the points would be transferred. And he could transfer as many points as he wanted. Han Fei's first reaction was not the principle of this thing, but didn't this mean that he could rob others? The author said, these 3 chapters are daily updates. We'll add chapters a little later. Dodo, you'll be the first to add chapters. I'll write first at about 7 o'clock. Don't worry, I won't miss any chapters. Thank you for your monthly votes. I'll continue to ask for more. I can still write, end of this chapter. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.